Hi, everyone. Welcome to the February 10th meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. Len, would you please call the roll?
Sure. We have Jill Grant,
Here.
Dave Olson,
Here.
Dan Haggerty,
Here.
Greg Diegas,
Here.
Claire,
Here.
Michelle, Michelle, wow.
Sorry, I think there's a delay on my internet. I'm here.
And I'm here. We're all present.
Okay, great. Thank you, members of the public and everyone for attending. Just to quickly go over the meeting rules. If anyone wants to speak on any items, either not on the agenda during section 2 for public comment or on the agenda during one of our regular agenda items, please raise your hand. The way to do that is based on the different types of Zoom, different ways that you're logged onto Zoom, but for the most part, it is, if you're on mobile, it's in the More tab at the bottom of your phone. If you're on desktop, on that, then there's a raise hand. If you did in either of those places, it may be at the bottom of the participants list. And then another thing that we're going to be testing out during this is tool that we can use that will actually provide captioning or speaking. I'm going to test a little bit. You know, it should help any issues or
Michelle, you are really dropping out.
Michelle, a quick comment there. As Dave noted, you're dropping out a lot. When Lena gives her report, you might want to consider restarting. That sometimes helps.
I don't think she's even on anymore, is she?
Sometimes turning your video off can help too.
No, she's still logged in.
it's completely shut down on me. Can you guys hear me now?
Go ahead, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. The whole Zoom app shut down. So I'm not sure where you guys stopped being able to hear me, but did you hear what I said about the...
Everything was really broken up at the start. In fact, you're still breaking up. In fact, if you can hear us, you're paused right now. I suggest restart your machine.
Do you want me to go ahead in the meantime?
Sure, let's see. We could move on.
Okay.
Taking it to...
Yeah. So Claire, I think she was just about to say we're turning on live captioning, and I've turned it on, but despite the earlier test working, I'm only seeing it on the host's computer at the moment. I assume nobody else is seeing live captioning.
No.
I'm seeing live captioning.
I'm seeing it.
Good. Okay, good.
I'm not.
Interesting.
Interesting.
This is Dan. I'm not as well.
I see it at the bottom of my screen. Is that where you guys are looking?
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Okay. Well, that is mysterious.
I think Michelle must be restarting.
What's the live captioning for, Dave?
The live captioning was an experiment to see if people having audio troubles but not video troubles will be able to follow the meeting. And so since not everybody is seeing it, that's clearly not going to work. I'm going to drop off.
Dave,
back on.
I just turned it on. There's a tab on the bottom, live transcript. I turned it on.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see that too. Yeah.
I turned it back off. I think it's good to have as an option. I don't know that it should be there automatic, but It looks like it's there if you need it.
I'm seeing it now too.
Okay.
Thanks for pointing that out, Dan.
We could, while we're waiting for Michelle, move on to reports from government representatives, starting with Lena, if that's okay with everybody.
That's fine, Claire.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to do it. So good evening, Midcoast Community Council members and members of the community. My name is Lena Silverman, and I am providing a report on behalf of Supervisor Don Horsley's office at the County of San Mateo. So I've got about a page of COVID related stuff, so bear with me on that. I'm going to start with COVID-19 more generally. We remain in the purple tier in San Mateo County with an unadjusted case rate of 25.4 cases per 100,000 population. Our COVID positivity rate is now 3.8% overall and 6.5% in the lowest healthy places index census tracts, otherwise known as HPI. We will remain in the purple tier with its restrictions until our adjusted case rate, which is 15.4 cases per 100,000 population, drops to 7 or below. Our positivity for our lowest HPI census tracts at 6.5% is already below 8% as required to move into the red tier. We had 5 ICU beds available on Tuesday and are continuing to see a decrease in COVID-related acute care. Now, all this being said, we are still in the purple tier. We're in the deep purple. Please continue to practice social distancing, washing your hands, wearing a mask, and all other safety techniques. I'm going to go on to the COVID-19 vaccine. And first, I'm going to speak about changes within the federal, state, and county systems. Then I'll go through some of the numbers of both total vaccinations as well as the racial demographics, which the Board of Supervisors were presented on yesterday. Before I do that, I do want to remind everyone, no matter what tier you fall into, to sign up for both the state's and the county's notification systems. Although the county is still recommending you work with your healthcare provider to receive the vaccine, I don't believe there is harm in taking a minute to also sign up for these notification systems. I will include links, or I have included links to both in the chat. The federal government has announced that they are expanding their pharmacy partnership beyond long-term care residents, allowing others to be vaccinated at their local pharmacies. The federal government and state also announced 2 mass vaccination sites in California that will be operated by FEMA and the state. One will be at the Oakland Coliseum. Also, the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine has been submitted to the FDA for emergency use authorization and will be reviewed by their committee on February 26th. The state has announced a new arrangement with Blue Shield to assume responsibilities for major aspects of the vaccine rollout in California. I also was made aware today that Kaiser will most likely assist in this, only in a consultation, I don't know how to say that, conciliatory position. We expect to see more changes as a result of this transition. Other aspects of the initial framework continue for the moment, in which the state of California directly supplies the large multi-county healthcare systems, which in San Mateo County are Kaiser, Sutter, Seton, and Dignity for their members and staff. The county continues directing their allocation of vaccines to smaller providers not covered by the state and immunizing those populations that are not reached through large healthcare systems. Of the 49,625 first doses managed by San Mateo County, 90% have been administered to patients or distributed to other healthcare providers, with vaccinations well underway, and this week's focus on a large second vaccination clinic for almost 10,000 healthcare workers at the event center. We have also contracted with Carbon Health to help us carry out these events on an ongoing basis. So now I'm going to move into some more of the numbers. Although the state has opened up the guidelines, if supplies allow, to include the next group of essential workers, 1B, which includes those in education, childcare, first responders, and food and agriculture, we have not done that yet because supplies to us and other large healthcare entities have not been sufficient even to do the older adults. We estimate the addition of those groups to be approximately an additional 40,000 people. The challenge is that expanding to them does not create the supplies we and the other healthcare systems need to actually provide those vaccines. The San Mateo County Health website has a new dashboard showing the numbers of COVID vaccinations by city or community. Because there's so many now, I provide a link to all data dashboards in one link in the chat below. County Health will be providing additional local data in the coming weeks. So the State Immunization Registry report for Sunday, the 7th of February, showed 84,783 individuals vaccinated with 104,395 doses, which is about 13.2% of our total eligible county population. We can see from the data dashboard that 43,661 residents 65 and older have been vaccinated so far. There are about 129,975 San Mateo County residents age 65 and up. So this would be about 33.6% of this group. The leading vaccinators to date are County Health, Kaiser, Sutter Pamph, CVS, and Dignity. San Mateo County Health was able to provide the Board of Supervisors with a breakdown of the racial demographics of those who have received the vaccine. When we compare percentage of population to percent vaccinated, we find that the Latinx population is 12% of our county compared to 8.9% vaccinated. The Asian population is 26.1% of the population compared to 28% vaccinated. The African American population is 2.7% of the population compared to 1.4% vaccinated, and the white population is 52.1% compared to 40.8% vaccinated. Please note that race and ethnicity is missing for 8.3% of current CAIR data, which is the California Immunization Registry. Also, the designation other race is 4.2% of the population, but 11.3% of the CAR database. The data from the Federal Long-Term Care Partnership Program from Walgreens and CVS is not totally consistent from report to report and now lists 544 facilities of which 93% have first clinics scheduled, and of these 81% have first clinics completed. Second and third clinics have also been scheduled for the vast majority. Some of those without first clinics scheduled are small facilities which may have had residents and staff vaccinated at mass vaccination sites instead. In 357 facilities, over 12,536 vaccines doses have already been provided to residents and staff. Although I wrote this recently. I think I was a little tired. Although I've done a stellar job at reading a variety of confusing numbers to you all, Supervisor Horsley has wisely suggested that we have a representative from San Mateo County Health speak to the MCC at a future meeting if that is something you would be interested in. So moving away from COVID and moving to fuel load reduction, the County of San Mateo released 3 opportunities for community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, and faith-based organizations to support a variety of projects to reduce heat and wildfire impacts on San Mateo County communities. The funding will range from $5,000 to $50,000 per organization, and I will include a link to more information in the chat. The deadline is coming up very quickly, so if you'd like my assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out. Yesterday, I spoke with Denise Ania, who is the president of Fire Safe San Mateo County, regarding the Fuel Load Reduction Ad Hoc Committee. With information discussed, I will be drafting an agenda for a meeting following San Mateo County Parks presentation to the Board of Supervisors on the 23rd of this month. Wonderlic and Huddard Park were awarded a grant for shaded fuel breaks, fuel load reduction, and ecological restoration. I'm still getting updated on this, so I will have more information to come. And also through a partnership of the County, Caltrans, Cal Fire, Fire Safe Council, and other fire entities, 25 eucalyptus are being removed from Highway 84, otherwise known as Woodside Road. Because this requires a road closure, Cal Fire is taking the opportunity to reduce other forms of fuel load along the highway during this time. There's also a plan for work to be done on Highway 35, Skyline Boulevard, although I do not have the details on that at this moment. Supervisor Horsley's office has been receiving a lot of great questions about eucalyptus removal, many regarding private property and the permitting process. I personally am working with Erica Harris from the RCD as well as members of the planning department to find out the answers to these questions. And when I have them, I will happily report them to the MCC. The Murata Bridge replacement, total shift, went to the Board of Supervisors yesterday for certification on their negative declaration, which means that they will not be completing an EIR, which is an environmental impact report. The Department of Public Works is looking to complete the permitting process in June of this year, start construction during the summer, and complete the project by fall of 2021. My last thing. The San Mateo County Board of Supervisors yesterday matched a $1 million commitment, or not yesterday, this is old. They did 2 weeks ago, a $1 million commitment for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to help local businesses hit by the pandemic. The matching grants bring the total pledge to more than 2.3 million to the new Restaurant, Brewery, and Winery Relief Program. These applications are for grants for up to $10,000, and they will be open, I think, soon or now. So I'm just re-updating on that because that's a really great opportunity. And that is all my updates for tonight. And I'm happy to take questions. I got like red in the face.
Is Michelle?
I have a question for you, Lena. This is Dan. Yeah, so wondering, this as far as the fire danger, we're before we know it, we're going to be right back into the same. So I thank you for your short update. Nicholas will be on later. Do you know if he's going to be expanding on ideas for fire reduction, fuel reduction at Quarry Park tonight? And if
I
not,
can answer that.
you give us something.
Nicholas is not going to be specifically covering the fuel reduction project in his update. However, I think he is available to for you to ask a question of him regarding that. And I know we received a question from a member of the public about the same thing. So let's see if, I think Lena provided an update. We can ask Nicholas when it's time to go to him.
Yeah, we definitely have to stay on this. Thank you, Lena.
Yep. Claire, it looked like you had a question for Lena.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to your COVID information. There is a state facility at Moscone in San Francisco, which is going to do 5,000 people a day, and it is very easy to get in. So that might be a place to go if people are looking.
And are
awesome.
they taking non-San Francisco residents as well?
Yes, they are. From at least the coast side.
Thank you, Claire. No, you're absolutely right, and that's a great update. Thank you for adding that.
Oh, it's at myturn.ca.gov.
Great, thank you. And Carlisle Young, Sid, looks like you have a question. Please go ahead.
For Lena. Well, it's not really a question so much as maybe she can pass it on to Supervisor Horsley. I heard today when I was on the Planning Commission call at 9 that they are updating and hoping to roll out their new tree ordinance by March. I don't know if it'll happen because one of their planners is leaving. Joe Leclerc is retiring at the end of March, but they said they're going to try to get it rolled out by then. However, my question for you to pass on to Supervisor Horsley is maybe they could consider, I really wish they would, removing the permit fees to take down any eucalyptus. That would be great. I see you're nodding, so I'm so happy. Maybe it's already in the works, but I really think that that one tree in particular is pretty pervasive on the whole entire coast and can cause a lot of flammability in people's yards. So if you can at least make it easier for them to take it down, it's going to be expensive anyway, but reduce the fee to nothing and you might get more people doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Sid.
It's definitely something we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for Lena? No, it doesn't look like it. So let's go on to other government.
Hello, Fran Pollard. I have a
Okay.
question.
Hi, Fran. Go ahead.
I was wondering, are you gonna, is there gonna be vaccines here on the coast side? I don't think it's reasonable to expect 20,000 adults to drive over the hill to spend time in long lines where hundreds of thousands of other people are going. So it'd be so simple to bring it to the coast. Nobody seems to have it. I've checked CVS, Seton Hospital, the Coastside Senior Center. They're willing to do it, but they haven't gotten any vaccines.
Yeah, no, it's a great comment, and it's something that the supervisor said directly to me and has said. It's the problem now, and this is not a very satisfying answer, and this is what we've been hearing, is that it's not an issue with getting those vaccines into people's arms. It's just we don't have a lot. So to open up a big center right now doesn't make sense, but that doesn't mean that couldn't change in the next few weeks even. We were very open to having something on the coast. It's just at this point, there's so few vaccines that it's not very viable, is what I've been told.
Well, don't forget us when you get the vaccines, okay? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Fran. Anyone else? Okay, let's go on to reports from other government officials. I see Harvey Rarbach is at the meeting. Harvey, did you want to say something for Half Moon Bay?
Yeah, briefly. I want to report on a couple of environmental actions and issues that we took at the last city council meeting last week. We heard a report about our new climate action and adaptation program, which involves reaction to sea level rise, ocean erosion, greenhouse gas emission, an enormous number of things that have no respect for whether you live on the Midcoast or inside the boundaries of Half Moon Bay. They affect everybody on the coast side. So we heard a timeline. We're going to have future meetings with the community. And this is just the beginning of a real effort to improve how the city and the coast side deal with environmental degradation. And then along the same lines, we also heard a report about REACH codes, which is an esoteric name for building codes that go beyond the California state requirements. And the council was unanimous that we would like that new construction all be 100% electrical, no natural gas permitted. That is just the beginning recommendation. There are going to be many more meetings about this. The public is welcome to chime in. This affects lots of people. It's controversial, but we want to be leaders in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, tomorrow is the public meeting of the Coastside Recovery Initiative at 6 o'clock. It's an open meeting. It's meant for the coast side, not just the city of Half Moon Bay, so that we can have an economic recovery. It's very important that the whole community and the Chamber of Commerce, businesses, nonprofits, government all be involved in making sure that we actually have a good recovery. So that's 6 o'clock tomorrow. You're all welcome to come. Excuse me. And it's the information is on our the city website. It's in the Half Moon Bay Review. It's beginning of a real effort to make sure that we have an equitable and as fast as possible recovery. So that's my report. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Harvey.
I have a question for Harvey.
Yeah, I see that you have your hand raised. Sid, please go ahead.
Sorry. Harvey, I thought when you announced it last time, I signed up through some link, but now I didn't get any response. Do people still have to sign up, or you just go on Zoom for that meeting tomorrow?
No, you have to sign up. You have to pre-register.
Okay. Did they send any confirmations back if you pre-registered?
I honestly don't know.
Okay, that's all right. I'll look again because I don't recall. Thanks.
They did send back confirmations. You may have to look in your spam folder or try,
Okay.
Okay, Greg?
I had the same experience Sid did. I did not get a confirmation. I've checked my spam folders. I just now tried to register and it comes up with a link that's different than I saw before. It changes at the bottom. It says, please click this URL to join. So I will be trying that link that showed up when I try to join tomorrow night, but there was no confirmation sent to me.
Okay. Me either.
I can check why that is, but use the link that was sent. I'm pretty sure it's going to work, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
I think he said he didn't get the link like I didn't, so he must have just got that link off of the page now, the website.
That's
right.
right.
Okay, I'll look
The page changed
Oh,
and showed a link that says, please click this link just now. It didn't happen to me the first time, as far as I remember, but now it did change and show a link, which I've copied and saved. So I never did get.
chat or no? Well, that's all right. Never mind. I'll look myself.
It
Thanks.
sounds like if you haven't registered with a new link, it might be worth just to make sure you can get in, going back and re-registering.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Any other questions for Harvey or any other government officials who would like to speak tonight? Okay, I don't see anything, so let's move on. Next is public comment and announcements. Do we have any members of the public who want to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? I see Crystalline has raised her hand. So Crystalline, please go ahead. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I would also like to invite everybody to the State of the Coast Side, which is tomorrow on Zoom at 11 a.m. And there will be presentations from wonderful Michelle on behalf of MCC, and Casey from Pescadero, and Jim, who is the GM of the Harbor, and Mayor Brownstone of the city of Half Moon Bay. And they will be giving their outlooks and taking questions about things expected on the coast side for 2021, which is a great lead-in for the 6 o'clock open house. If you visit our website, hmbcoastsidechamber.com, and click on the link to upcoming events, the Zoom info is on the events page for the State of the Coastside. Thank you.
Thanks, Crystalline. Sid, you still have your hand raised. Was that from before or did you re-raise it?
Who?
I think that was still from before, Sid.
I think it was new, but
Sid, do you have a new question or a new comment?
Not a question. I had the question and I lowered my hand and then you said public comment, so I raised my hand.
Okay, so please go ahead and make your comment.
Okay. All right. Well, this is about our Midcoast needs assessment that they went and did a survey back in 2002. And then shortly thereafter, the Board of Supervisors authorized the Coastside Parks and Recreation Mitigation Fee to be collected on new development. And they've been collecting it since about 2003. And they have put in and provided a tot lot in Clipper Ridge. The purpose of the fee is to create parks and possibly down the road a community center. And we don't have one. I know Granada Services District is thinking of buying possibly the El Granada Fire Station, but I asked Nicholas to put it in his proposal for his next 2-year budget plan, and he said no. So I was wondering if anybody wanted to get together as an ad hoc committee and talk about a vision for the proposed facilities for only for local coastside use, because all the county parks, they advertise on their website and then people come out here and it creates more gridlock and everything. So we're still not going to have a community center anytime soon, or a park for ourselves with like picnic tables or the usual things you might find, like a multi-purpose room for meetings or classes, or senior citizens. I've been doing some research. I'm pretty sure we are the only community that does not have a community center. There's a lot of cities that have them, even like in San Mateo Highlands that borders 280, they have a community facilities district for their recreation facilities for that neighborhood, and they have a pool and some daycare and all kinds of things that we really lack over here. And if they've been collecting that fee all this time and now they're using it on other things, it's disappointing to me. And I would like to see if there's any other community members that would like to join me in trying to get something to happen without waiting for the county. I was on that call today at 9 a.m. for the Connect the Coast side that they presented to the Planning Commission. Still no funding. We keep going to meetings and we end up always planning but never doing. I mean, when Dave Holland was our parks director, I went to the planning things where they tried to find parcels for our community center or a park. They also, I was on a different committee, Len, I think, was on it too, where they planned the future route of the coastal trail going north towards, Pacifica, but we never really did anything. So I'm kind of looking to maybe get some other like-minded community members that make it happen and not wait for somebody to do it for us. Thank you.
Said, do you want to go ahead? I mean, I think it's a good idea, and it's good that you can start to connect with other members of the community who are interested, and keep me posted as to what you come up with. Why don't you go ahead and put in the chat, if you're comfortable, the way that you'd like people to contact you?
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind if somebody from not the El Granada group, because obviously they've got their own community facilities district already, but maybe somebody from Montera Moss Beach who's on the MCC, if there's anyone interested or has a little bit of time to kind of head up an ad hoc committee, so it doesn't have to take up a lot of Midcoast Community Council's time, but I will put it in the chat. Thank you.
It does look like someone on the council is raising his hand, and that's Greg. Did you want to say something, Greg?
As the only Montera duly elected representative, I'm duty bound to look into this issue with Sid. She's already sent me some material. My only question is, will the Brown Act let me tell you all about it once I've done something?
Well, can't you report out on an ad hoc committee meeting? No?
Just kidding.
I don't know. Claire's in Moss Beach, so that would be 2 of you anyway. And we can go on and do this offline until something comes. Thanks. Thanks for volunteering, Greg.
Okay, yeah, and you could report out at any meeting, any MCC meeting, on what your progress is. Okay, let's go on next to, if we don't have any other public comments, I don't see anyone else raising their hand. Let's go on to the consent agenda. I believe we need to pull all 3 items from the consent agenda because they're not ready and they were not.
I move we continue the approval of the minutes to a future meeting since they are not yet available.
Second.
Okay, I think we need a roll call vote on that, Len.
You're muted, Len.
Len appears to be on mute.
Okay, Michelle,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
myself, yes, passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you.
And-
It looks like we had a community member who raised his hand right as we were moving on to that. So Stephen, did you want to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda?
Yeah, I apologize. This is my first time attending. So I'm a resident of Moss Beach, and I see that Nicholas Calderon had joined. It's my understanding that it's his decision to close Seal Cove Beach. I'm looking for a date as to when it will be opened back up.
Actually, can
And
I
the
ask you to
reason,
hold off on that until Nick gives his presentation. That is an item on the,
okay,
yeah, just hold on. You can.
Michelle,
Okay.
you're logged on twice as the MCC account again and yourself. And that's why we're getting the echo.
Sorry. Let's go to Nicholas. And I'll just hand it over to him and I'll fix that.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. I think I'm on the agenda for 3 topics. One is the pump track, one is the Midcoast Park Development Fund, and one is Fitzgerald Marine Reserve Seal Cove area. So does the MCC have a preference as to which order I address these?
No, I think you can, do you have a presentation on the pump track?
I do have a PowerPoint. Yeah, I can go ahead and jump into that first.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Let's do that and then the other 2.
Let me and can everyone see my screen here? This.
Yeah, but if you can go into presentation mode, it'll show up better.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Having to move all the photos here. Let's do this. Here we go. So good evening. Tonight I'll be speaking on a series of issues, including right now the Quarry Park pump track. As the Midcoast Community Council may recall, this was an issue that was brought up at the end of 2019, and the photo on the bottom left is of the Midcoast Community Council meeting where this matter was discussed. And at that time, well, I'll jump on in and address the timeline in a second. But one of the first questions I get often is, what is a pump track? And so here you can see an image of a dirt pump track with what I have found is probably the best definition of what a pump track is. But what is most important of this slide is really to take away the wide variety of users on the track and the enjoyment people are having, and how through this project we're going to be able to provide an amazing family-friendly community facility at Quarry Park. And the pump track at Quarry first came up, excuse me, during the Quarry Park master planning process. And when looking through the notes and the history of the master plan process, the pump track repeatedly was ranked the #1 facility that members of the public wanted to see at the park. And so this started the conversation, and for many years, the department and the Granada Community Services District and the community discussed the feasibility of a pump track at Quarry Park, and no decisions were really made until such time as the community got together and built a pump track through Murata East. And when this was first brought to the department's attention, the department had to close the pump track down. And as you can see, as it winds in and out, the Department of Eucalyptus Trees, the department was not comfortable with allowing people to use this. And given that it wasn't authorized by the department, it was not something that we could support. However, after the MCC meeting that occurred at the end of 2019, where I believe probably close to 100 people in attendance, the department committed that we would, in fact, design a pump track and build a pump track at Quarry Park after conducting a public engagement process. And the department had originally committed to an aggressive timeline, but with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, that timeline was missed, but we've still been able to conduct a community engagement process to get the project going and get the designs completed. And so after we committed to conducting the project, we met on site with several members of the community. And looking at the information from the master plan, the meadow area by the parking lot was identified as an ideal location for a new amenity. And when we met with members of the community, they also identified this area as an ideal location for a new amenity. And so it was really a great opportunity to see so many members of the public and the department on the same page off the bat as to where we felt this needed to go. And this location is ideal for several reasons. First, it's relatively flat, and so the amount of site preparation required is minimal, which means less ground disturbance, which means less cost, which means a quicker construction timeline. And then also there's no sensitive resources at this location. It's non-native, it's non-native seasonal grassland. And because a lot of people use this area as somewhere for their dog to run, there's already a lot of disturbance. Also, it's located between the parking lot and our existing storage sheds. And so we're able to have easy access for maintenance of the track, and users are going to have easy access to get to the track without having to go throughout the park to find it. And then lastly, we're able to build it in a way that it's not going through eucalyptus trees, and we're not running the risk of people having accidents with eucalyptus trees. So there's a lot of great reasons as to why this site is ideal. So on November 4th, we held a virtual community workshop on the pump track. And at that time, we rolled out what the department's criteria for a project was. And we had a series of them, but the first and the most important one was that it had to be a family-friendly space. And we wanted it to be accessible for people of all ages and riding abilities. And we wanted it to be something that the Midcoast community could really support, get behind, and utilize. I've been working with the community for a really long time, and what I know is that on busy weekends, it's hard to drive places and it's hard to be mobile. And so what better opportunity than to give the community an asset or a facility that they can ride their bike to and have a good time with their friends and their neighbors and their family. And so that was something that was really, really important to us. But we also wanted to make sure that people of all abilities could ride it. So whether you've been riding for a really long time, whether you've been riding for a while and you're just really building your skills, or you're just learning how to ride a bike, we wanted you to be able to utilize this facility, and that's what we set out to do. And so when we set out to build the tracks, the first step was the superintendent, Scott Lombardi, and I visited a series of tracks throughout the Bay Area and really started getting ideas as to what made sense. And when we first met with the community, we were told we want a pump track, and we were like, okay, we'll get you a pump track. And then as we started going around and talking with people, we saw places that had two pump tracks. They'd have a pump track for more advanced riders, and then they'd have a pump track for more beginner riders. And we thought, well, that's a great idea, right? Give people a smaller track that they can build their confidence on and build their technical riding abilities, and then they can move to that more advanced track. And then we went up to Marin and we saw this skills building trail, and we thought, well, that's an awesome feature to have. I mean, if you're going to have a pump track for advanced riders and you're going to have a pump track for beginner riders, why not go ahead and also have this skill building trail or this perimeter trail? And it's really a trail that's designed to be ridden at slower speeds with different type of technical obstacles that really allow you to hone those skills. And we just felt like that tied everything together. So whatever we were going to do and whatever the preferred alternative for the project was, it was going to have 3 amenities or 3 facilities. It was going to have an advanced or an intermediate track. It was going to have a beginner track, and it was going to have this skills building trail. And we felt like these facilities complemented each other so well and offered the Midcoast community the experience that they had been asking for so many years, and that I think we really felt like we owed to the Midcoast community to build. And so during that public workshop, we proposed 3 different tracks, and now's a great time to talk about how we formed a project advisory team that included a representative from the Midcoast Community Council. It included one of the directors from the Granada Community Service District. It included members of the community and the Coastside Mountain Bikers and the department. And so we all got together to make sure that that intermediate track was really representative of the experience we wanted to provide and that the community was asking for. And so we came up with these 3 tracks. And during the meeting, we did a poll or a survey to find out which of these 3 tracks the meeting participants preferred. And then we put it online for 2 weeks and we left it open for more people to respond. And when we got all the responses back, what we found was that my slide's not going to the next one. There we go. What we found was that, almost 2/3 of all survey respondents preferred the Flying X Pump track, which is, I've been doing public projects for a long time, and I've never seen 64% of people support one of 3 alternatives. And so it was really the clear favorite. And so we identified that as the preferred alternative. And you can see how it looks here. You have that beginner track, you have the intermediate and the advanced track, you have the skills building trail. It's going to be enclosed in a fence so that you'll have to ride down that existing trail from the parking lot, or if you're coming from another part of the park, you can come from that area. You have to go through a fence, so you're not able to access it from anywhere. We're going to have picnic tables, a bike fix-it station, and then the 3 tracks. And so this is the preferred alternative. And we brought this to our Parks Commission last week, and they unanimously supported it. And we at the department are really excited. This is our first, this is our introduction into pump tracks. And what I can tell you is the more we talk about it, the more we get excited about it. And the more we talk about, well, how can we take what we're learning from providing the Midcoast with this awesome experience, and how can we transfer that to other communities that we're working with? But what I can say is this has been such an amazing project, and working with members of the community that we've been working with, the excitement around this project is really contagious. And so I'm just really thrilled that we're able to offer this service. So the schedule we're looking at is we believe we'll have plans and specs completed by the end of March. And we are also hopeful that we'll have our permits and approvals by the end of March. That allow us to go to the Board of Supervisors for their adoption of the plans and specs in April. And then we'd be able to advertise the contract in April and award it in May. And then we'd be able to break ground. And for this type of project, construction will be pretty quick, provided that weather cooperates with us. And we should have people riding this track by the end of summer. And then the last thing I'd like to say is this has really been a collaborative effort. And so while we are the point of the project, the Granada Community Service District, their board of directors voted unanimously to enter into a funding agreement with the department for up to $100,000 of construction expenses. And we've been working very closely with the Coastside Mountain Bikers to to design the project and make sure that we're really incorporating the desired feedback. And the San Mateo County Parks Foundation secured funding from REI for construction of the project. So this has been something that a lot of different organizations and entities have been getting behind. And I think that's representative of the support that it has. And so I guess the part that I have left out that I will add is, as part of this project, we will be expanding the parking lot at Quarry Park. We know that there's concern around parking, and we want to make sure that we are able to add to the existing parking supply. And so the existing parking lot will be expanded to add spots, and we're optimistic that that will alleviate some of the pressure that's been put on the adjacent neighborhood. So with that said, I am happy to answer any questions regarding the pump track.
Thanks, Nicholas. Yeah, we've come a long way since that meeting. I think it was last January, with all the 100 or so people voicing their concerns, and it's great to see that we have made so much progress, and that hopefully we'll have a pump track later this year. Let's go to, so let's do questions on this part, and then we will move on to the other updates, and then we'll take questions on those. So it looks like Jill has a question on the pump track.
Hi, Nicholas. Thank you for that presentation. It's a wonderful project. I'm very excited to see it built. How many parking spaces are they going to add for the Quarry Park?
Yeah, we're looking at about 10 right now. And we think that we can do that without causing any significant damages or impacts to the area that we'll be expanding it into. If we can get more, we most certainly will.
So are you planning on extending it to the east then, along that fire road, or?
It would be into that area. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. I'm sorry. When you say, I'm sorry, I think we're thinking different directions. It's going to be expanding towards the quarry floor. I think you're thinking of you're thinking back towards the pond and where those storage containers are. Is that right?
No, more uphill.
Yes. Okay. Then we're talking about the same area. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Of course.
Dan?
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. A couple concerns. So one of them is the genuine need for a fence around the pump track. I question that. I think that based on your layout, most of the pump track will be up against steep terrain, and it just doesn't make sense. I'm not a big fan overall of, I think fencing should be minimized and, not used unless it's absolutely necessary. And I just question that. So hopefully time goes by, you could maybe eliminate the fencing. Well, why don't you just go ahead and respond on that, and then I'll ask about the parking.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to consider the elimination of fencing. I don't think I'm ready to kind of make a commitment at this time. 2 of the 4 sides of the project area are not surrounded by steep topography, and those 2 of the 4 sides are where people are going to be coming from. And so channeling to make sure people aren't crossing the skills trail at anywhere they want and possibly interfering with people who are riding is something that I think we need to be considerate of. But I'm happy to consider not adding fencing at first and seeing if it's needed at a later date. I'm happy to consider that.
I think that would be wise. I think, pump track situation, if somebody just marches right through, activity going on, it's almost as rude as like, walking with muddy boots right over a white carpet. I think it would be very rude if anybody. So yeah, I think it does make sense to kind of give a little time and see what happens if it's necessary. So onto the parking. So if you're walking in from El Granada and you're walking straight into the parking lot, or walking or driving, the bathroom's on the right-hand side. You're talking about expanding directly up the hills in the same direction?
That's correct.
Okay. Um, and just like a linear, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm a little concerned. It's a very country, kind of a feel, and I'd really be concerned with, a massive parking lot. And I've actually thought about this quite a while ago. There's a road off to the right into the direction of the pump track, and I thought that maybe they could expand, have a little parking, where it is now, and then kind of reach in to the right a little bit. It's just a suggestion, see what other people think, but to try to spread out the parking as opposed to having it one giant, larger lot. It just, I fear that a massive lot would take away from the feel, the experience of using the park. So it's just something to consider, I guess. So, do we have time for really looking at? I mean, I don't think you have any drawings yet, do you? We have time to look at options.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to look at first and foremost how that would impact the flow, where people would be coming from. Are we putting vehicles on a road, on a small road where you're also going to have people walking and riding their bikes? How are people going to turn around? Where will people park? Is that going to impact drainage? Is it going to impact any resources? What type of opportunities are being lost if you were to do that? So there's a lot to analyze in that. And certainly that analysis hasn't been done. So I don't think I'd be able to make any commitment on that as well.
Yeah, impacts could go either way. Okay, so we'll just wait until it's time to look at it a little closer with your analysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Thanks, Dan. Rick Barker. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Nicholas, when you were referring to fencing, can you clarify a little more on the fencing that is proposed? Are we talking like a minimal split rail, or are you talking like a 6-foot chain link fence?
Yeah, it would be a split rail with a gate probably at 2 locations, both of which would allow us to open on kind of 2 different sides, so that depending on where you come from, you have an easy access in. But that split rail kind of serves not just to channel users of the pump track so that they're coming in at one area and they're not crossing in front of people, but it also will hopefully serve as a barrier to prevent loose dogs from running in or anything like that. The other thing is, if you've ever been to a skate park, you know that while people don't maybe intentionally step in front of other people, oftentimes you may be looking one direction, not the other, or you might not just be paying attention and things happen. So most certainly, maybe people don't do it intentionally, but it certainly doesn't mean it never happens.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to stress the importance of this is a specific activity zone that you definitely want to feel safe in riding. And when you're riding the track, you shouldn't have to be worrying about cross traffic or anything of that nature if someone's frisbee or dog. And not to say that a sprint rail will stop a dog, but it is very important to at least 2 of the 4 sides to have some sort of barrier there. The 2 other sides that I think Dan was referring to, those already have existing barbed wire fences that are there now, whether people notice them or not, but those have been there the whole time. So
yeah, and I don't think we'd put something around the entire thing, but most the plan was on those 2 sides, but we can definitely analyze that again.
Right.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions specifically about the pump track?
Yes, Fran Pollard, El Granada. I want to thank Nicholas for bringing up that you're going to do parking. I'm just wondering, Nicholas, how soon? Is it going to be before, after the pump track goes in, or during, or simultaneously?
I would very much like it to be either before, during, or immediately after, depending on if we may need to use the area that's going to be area that we would expand parking into. If we need to use that as a staging area, for anything, then we would likely convert it into a parking lot after. And we wouldn't be able to do it before, but we have to look at what makes the most sense from a timeline and an efficiencies perspective. So, ideally it'd be before or simultaneously, but it may be immediately after.
Well, I hope immediately after, if not before. It should be, because I live in the neighborhood. My neighbors are inundated with parking. We've had as many as 30 cars around our neighborhood on both sides of the street, which are very narrow streets. People can't even get out of their driveways when there's parking on both sides of the street. So that's one thing we've requested, is to have parking on one side of the street only, on Columbus and Santa Maria. And the other thing is, yeah, 10 more parking spaces isn't going to be enough, but I have ideas for other spaces, Nicholas. So I'd like to be able to talk to whoever is designing the parking, and I would like to show some more spaces that are already in use. So some of them are, and we can expand and create some more parking, because it's very unfair to the neighborhood. And I would hope MCC will back me up on this and make the county, or request the county do it as soon as possible, or along with building the pump track.
Yeah, and Fran, you and I have definitely had extensive conversations on this topic, and we are, like I said, we're evaluating where parking makes the most sense from a safety perspective, from an impact perspective, and
Well, let me know when you come out, and I'll show you some places too.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Fran. Any other questions about the pump track? Okay. Nicholas, why don't you go ahead? I think your other two topics are going to be verbal reports, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The one of the issues was regarding the Midcoast Park and Rec Development Fund, and there's a question regarding how much is in there. The most recent figure that we have is $497,319.89. A report from Planning and Building, in accordance to the county ordinance, will be going to the Board of Supervisors, I believe. If it didn't go this week, it will go at the next meeting. So that item is going forward. I know there's been questions about that as well. Are there any questions on?
So that's the extent of your report on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Len has a question on that.
I know sometime back there's a periodic requirement to report on that, and that to keep the funding. So that's the report you were just referring to?
That is my understanding.
And so is that distributed to the community so they can see what's in that?
I think it's distributed to the extent that all board items are subject to the Brown Act and posted at least 72 hours in advance and made available to the public. I don't know.
But since this is specifically for the community, if you could get it to the MCC.
Yeah, when that goes to the board, I'm happy to inform Michelle.
Thanks.
When I go to the board, I can let Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
Nicholas, I want to follow up on that. I watch the agendas anyway, so I'll post it. But so you're going to give us all the way back to 2017 then?
So in 2017, the fund balance was $339,976.70. That was the fiscal year end. Fiscal year end in 18 was $386,312.09. 2019 was $454,855.35. And then again, 2020 was $497,319.89.
Okay, so there were no expenditures in between then. It just kept growing.
My understanding is, I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't want without knowing for sure.
Right, that was the detail that we wanted, to make sure we had. So if it's not in the board of supervisors report, if you can get it to us, that would be great.
And I have a question on that.
Yeah.
What has historically that funding been used for, and what could it be used for?
So historically, the most recent expenditure, I believe, was a playground. What can it be used for is it can be used for the acquisition of land or parks and the development of parks to be used primarily by residents of the Midcoast. It cannot be used for ongoing maintenance or operation costs. It cannot be used for purchase of equipment. It can't be used for fuel reduction, habitat restoration. It has to be used for the acquisition of land or parkland and the development of recreational facilities to be primarily used by residents of the Midcoast.
Okay, and so then the Moss Beach Park or playground, did that money not come from there?
That might have come from our playground fund. I need to confirm that.
The first one, right after the county took it over, did come from that fund. The most recent one did not.
Yeah, so the project that we just finished during COVID would have come from our playground fund, and Dave would know better than I where the money came from when we first acquired the park.
Thank you. Len has another question. Go ahead, Len.
Just as another example of that, in the early days of the fund, it was used for a major refurbishing of the El Granada playfield, the entire playfield.
Is that at the school or?
School. It was a collaborative with the school.
I see. Okay. Okay,
Rand Pollard again, I'd like to say something.
go ahead.
I've heard that it's also some of this, the money is supposed to be spent for parks, mini parks, neighborhood parks for each community, not for anything else outside the community. And also for a community center. I think each of our districts need their own community center. And we haven't been given anything to help us with that. And I understand that some of the money has been proposed and maybe been given to districts and areas outside the community, which is illegal as far as I'm concerned.
Fran, to the best of my knowledge, that letter statement is not true. I'd be careful how you say
Do
that.
you know where it's all gone?
Yes,
Because it's been accumulating for 2 decades now, and there's hardly there probably should be at least $1 million in there. Where is it all gone?
There's the accounting for the stuff prior to 2017 is on the MCC website. You can go look at it. And that's why I was asking Nicholas to make sure that 2017 through the present was fully.
Well, I saw where in the needs assessment that was done recently, or a new report as of last September, part of the money is scheduled for the pump track, which is for a regional park. It's not our quarry park anymore. It's not our community park. And I don't like that it's going towards that. And also, there was a proposal talking to the Harbor District about helping them with their restroom. My God, the Harbor District is the richest district outside of the county, and there's no need to be giving them any of our money. It should go in our communities, and we all should be fighting for that.
So just to be clear,
go ahead, Nicholas.
The ordinance language clearly states that is to be used for either acquisition of land or parkland and or for the development of recreational facilities to be used primarily for residents of the Midcoast, not exclusively by residents of the Midcoast, but primarily. And that is directly out of the ordinance. As far as the pump track is concerned, this is most certainly an authorized use. I believe uh, the the people we have been working with, the members of the community we've been working with, primarily live on the Midcoast. And I think this is a very appropriate use of those funds. With regards to a restroom, I haven't tried in my tenure with the department to ever try to give money to the Harbor District for a restroom. That's never been part of any conversation I've had or any initiative I've tried to lead. I most certainly don't see that as a recreational facility. So that's not something that I think is appropriate for the Midcoast Park and Rec Development Fund to fund.
I agree with that. The planning
Okay,
department.
thank you. And this is not meant to be
The planning
a board
department was
conversation.
negotiating with the harbor.
Friend, your
And I
time is
muted
up.
you because Michelle was trying to indicate it's time to stop. I'll let
Yeah.
Michelle decide whether to unmute or not.
Well, her time is up. And it's, she was able to ask her questions. So I think it's time to move on. Nicholas, I think your third topic is about the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, and I know you have we have at least one member who wants to ask about that, but do you want to give an update first?
Yeah, so the stairs at Seal Cove and the down to the beach and the tide pools themselves are still closed, and we are working right now to come up with a strategy for reopening that. That whole area was originally closed due to COVID, and what occurred over the last year is that the Coastside District, or as we refer to as District 4, lost a handful of rangers due to retirement and transfers, and due to a hiring freeze at the county, we weren't able to fill those positions, and so we don't have the resources necessary to properly open it at that time. At this time, however, we have been given permission to start filling those positions. So we're going to start the recruitment process for those positions. And once we're able to get staffed in that Coastside District, we will be able to open Fitzgerald Marine Reserve fully again. But until we are able to do so, it's just, we're too limited on resources to open it in a responsible way. If anyone's familiar with what's been occurring south of Pillar Point, you will be familiar with the amount of people that swarm to go tide pooling and try to collect. And in that area, while they're allowed to, you're not at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. But if we're not able to properly manage that area and staff that area, there's nothing we can do to stop people from doing it. So until we can get properly staffed, we're not going to be able to do it. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get staffed here in the coming months. And so we'll be able to get that area open again. And then once it's open, we have no intention of closing it again.
What kind of timeline are you looking at for that?
Okay, let me call on people. So if you have a question for Nicholas, please go ahead and raise your hand. It looks like I'm just going to go in the order that hands are raised. So Chris Liang.
Hi, everyone. Nicholas, thanks so much for your report, for your update on Fitzgerald. I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for closing Fitzgerald during this really critical time. I think a lot of us that live near the reserve are aware that the type of visitation has changed since COVID. And, we're seeing a lot of people that are down in the reserve after hours. The graffiti is ramped up. Staff are just cleaning up graffiti down on the main beach and in the restrooms. There's graffiti on the trees. There's graffiti along the Jean Lauer Trail. People have been using the neighborhood, the end of Beach Street, the MWSD driveway, the house slab is bathrooms. So that issue is ramped. And your staff has been exceptional during this entire thing. And it's clear that they are underwater. There's a lot for them to do. And I know that they're also trying to bring Tanitas Creek online, in addition to the great work that they're doing around the pump track. So first, I just wanted to thank you. The other thing that I wanted to ask is whether you would consider reinstating the co-funded seasonal park aid position. A few years ago, Friends of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve worked with county parks to collectively fund a seasonal park aid that helped us to protect the harbor seal colony, and that stopped a couple of years ago. I'm wondering if you would reconsider that, and or whether you would consider creating a position like the one that you did over at Coyote Point. So a natural resource management intern that could work seasonally during busier times, in particular during pupping times. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, Chris, one of my predecessors had stopped that process, that position, and I don't know why. I have already spoken with the Friends, and when right before I assumed the role of director, and I informed them that if they were interested in restarting that program, I am more than happy to be supportive of that. So I'm more than happy to work out the details with the Friends for the funding to get an additional park aid out there during pupping season.
That's amazing. And then I don't know if the intern position at Coyote Point is paid or not, but I wonder if you'd please consider that as another potential way to get eyes on the reserve when staff is engaged elsewhere.
Yeah, the natural resource management team kind of works out of, well, pre-COVID, they worked out of both the office in Redwood City and Coyote Point, but they weren't assigned to any specific park. They worked on all the natural resources throughout the system. So I can most certainly talk with Hannah, our natural resource manager. I would imagine that it's going to be tough to swing that, given that our natural resource management team is taking point on our wildfire fuel management program. And so they're stretched pretty thin right now, as well as they're leading the effort to restore the damage that was done down at Pescadero Creek County Park. So I would imagine they are not going to be able to assume that role, but we're happy to work with the Friends of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve to get that park aid position back.
Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Next, let's go to Bill Moore. Bill, go ahead and unmute yourself. You can speak. There you go.
Hi, Nicholas. Thanks for being here tonight. I have a couple concerns. I also listened to your presentation on the Parks Commission, and you've obviously got a lot of things going on, a lot of projects, and a $20 million budget. So you have a lot of projects. So I'm wondering what the priority is for the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve at Seal Beach, and what kind of timeline you're looking at to reopen.
When you say priority, do you mean from a project perspective or from a reopening perspective?
Both.
Yeah, so at this time, with regards to Seal Cove, we're not looking at any projects. With regards to reopening, again, once we can get these ranger positions filled, we'll be able to reopen it. As far as timing, we'll need to open the recruitment, go through the recruitment process, select candidates, take them through the training. So, I would imagine we're probably looking, we're looking several months out.
Jesus.
But yeah.
Several months. So you're talking summer?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Is there any way that you can reprioritize so they can be open sooner?
Well, reprioritize, it's not necessarily like reprioritizing projects where you can say, okay, I'm going to push resources to one area and put other projects on hold. Our districts are pretty well defined. And in fact, the district that covers Fitzgerald Marine Reserve is also responsible for Tunitas and Calparissima, so as well as all the fuel reduction that people have been asking for. So they're stretched extremely thin right now. So I don't see us being able to put some of those other initiatives on hold to responsibly open Seal Cove. And I want to be clear that it's not that we don't want to, it's that we need to make sure we are being as responsible as we can with those resources, and just opening the gate and allowing people to go in without us having proper staffing in place first can cause serious long-term damage to the resources. And to knowingly allow that to occur would really be us making a decision against the best interests of our parks and going against our mission.
Then you need to make sure that you have the proper resources available at a proper time, and that should be sooner than later. My next question is the authority of the Friends of the Fitzgerald Reserve. I live within 100 yards, and I walk there just about every day that I'm home. And I noticed that the Friends have their windbreakers on and their pseudo uniforms, and they have seeming a lot of authority. They tell people a lot what to do. What is their official authority in that reserve?
But I wouldn't say the Friends have any authority. They're a volunteer organization that assists the department in managing the reserve and educating the public on the reserve. At this time, they are volunteering to help educate the public on why the reserve is closed, to make sure that members of the public are not violating any of the rules or the closure, and really, frankly, helping the department make sure that we are able to protect our resources. So, they don't have the same authority, say, a park ranger has, but they most certainly have been a helpful partner during this time.
Thank you. My time is up.
Thank you. Yep. Let's go on. Thanks, Bill. Let's go on to Chrislyn next.
Thank you. I just wanted to toss out there that the Chamber of Commerce also runs the Coastside Visitor Center, and we get quite a bit of calls about the Marine Reserve. And so both the public that lives around there as well as Nicholas, please feel free to email me, and I'll put my email in the chat. Any information that we should be relaying to the public, like areas to stay out of, and even in the neighborhood, so that we can hopefully maybe curb some of that parking that's undesired. I would love to help be a part of that solution, and I get at least 15-20 calls a week about it.
Thanks, Chrislyn.
Thank you.
That's great. Next, let's go to Stephen.
Yeah, a few questions. So you stated that the reason why it's closed is because you're shorthanded. So how many are you shorthanded?
That district is short 5 rangers right now.
So you had 5 retirees or 5 people moved out this last year?
We had a transfer. We had a transfer, a retirement, a resignation, and 2 positions that were set aside to be filled when we brought Tunitas on.
Okay, so you're 3 short.
Well, I'm not sure how you get 3.
We said 2 positions once Tunitas comes online, they would be moved over.
They're not moved over; they'd be filled.
Filled. Okay, so currently we're 3 short because is Tunitas open yet?
Technically, the park has not opened yet. But
we're 3 short.
But we are looking to fill those positions, given that we've taken on management of Cal Prisma Trail. You're on mute. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. So how many total do we have rangers in this area then? If we're 5 short, what should be the total number?
I'd have to go back and double check what the district has specifically and to be clear, that district goes from San Pedro Valley down to Tunitas, so it covers everything in between that.
Okay, so I guess my question then is there any reason, so Seal Cove has been closed for almost a year now. So I moved. Is there any reason why we can't close another park and open this up and let's share some of the love, since we don't want, I mean, if that's the issue is resources, then why can't we have a rotation of the closing of parks, and let's close another park so that we can use resources in another area to open this up for a while, so the members of our community have the opportunity to enjoy the reserve here.
Well, to be clear, you can still enjoy the reserve, right? The Bluff Top Trail is still open. Pillar Point Bluffs are still open. You can't go down to the tide pools and the beach. The reason though is FMR is a staff intense management process, because you have to have typically 2 people there at all times when that reef is open because of the different access points. Whereas most of our other parks, you don't have to have 2 people there at all times. So it's not as simple as saying, well, we'll close this park so we can open that. It's a lot more intense from a management perspective than that.
I can understand that. I just feel that this area has borne that burden for long enough, and that there can be some other parts of the community that you can close their parks and you can have this conversation with them to say, you've been open for the duration of COVID. Still, COVID's been closed the entire time. We're going to allow that park to open by moving these rangers away from these areas, so they will be closed for a period of time until we can get these 5 positions filled.
Yeah, once again, I need the most appropriate and responsible approach for us to take is opening it when we fill those positions, and that way sure we have the resources on site that need to be to properly manage that. And unfortunately, it's just not as easy as well, to open one thing you just need to close this one park and you're done. It's not that way, because is constantly moving from park to park and project to project. Whereas with FMR, once again, they need to be stationed there in order to protect those resources. So it's not a 1-for-1 trade, which is why it's so difficult.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Let's go next to Sid Young. Sid, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm also getting a phone call. I'm gonna just, oh, darn it. I know who that
I'll come
is.
back to you. How about that?
No, is there someone you can take next?
Yes, I'll come back to you, Sid. Next is Andrew Corcoran.
Hi there. I guess similar to the questions before, I see a ranger there and often 2, and it seems like the priority is opening the beach, but at the moment the time is spent managing the bluff. So is there any reorganization of the existing resources, and would a Monday to Friday or another kind of way of looking at it by time create opportunities for the resources you have got?
I don't, if we, excuse me, again, if we were to put the staff necessary on the beach to manage that resource appropriately and the way we need to be, what that means we would have to do is close multiple other parks and the way the parks that we would have to close are situated, the reality is there's no way of keeping people out. So we are knowingly allowing people to go into an area that we're not managing. And so it's just not it's not a feasible management approach, and it's not really a safe management approach either. And so once again, the best way to do this is going to be to bring on the necessary staff to make sure we have staff protecting our resources on the beach and protecting our resources throughout that district as necessary. Unfortunately, right now, what often happens is staff gets called and they have to take off to go handle either an injury or someone's lost, or they need to get down to Tenitas because there's certain activity going on that isn't supposed to be occurring. We can't, with our staffing levels right now, we can't commit to keeping 2 people in one place for the entire day for 5 days straight. it's not something that we can responsibly handle at this time. So that's why we need to fill those positions.
Okay. I guess all we can do for now is register how important it seems to be to open up the beach.
And I do appreciate that. And I've spoken with a lot of people, and I understand the frustration that's occurring. And if I had the resources, I would most certainly open it. It's just I don't have the resources to manage. I don't have the staff to manage that resource the way it deserves and needs to be managed. Once again, if you look at what's going on south of Pillar Point Bluff on a low tide, good weather weekend, the amount of people that are down there, they're doing serious harm to that environment. And it's going to take and when a proper assessment of that area is done, I think they're going to find that it's going to take a long time to repair what has been done. And I think it would be a mistake on the department's part to allow the same thing to happen at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And that's what may happen if we open it without having proper staffing resources.
Okay. Thank you for your question, and thanks, Nicholas, for that response. Sid, are you ready for us to come back to you?
Yes, I am. And it'll just be really quick because Nicholas just touched on it. I was going to ask Chris, who was speaking just before, if she could bring up the fact about that one little section of out by Mavericks that the public is allowed to gather sea life, sea creatures, because like he said, it is just crawling with people with buckets on the weekends and even weekdays now with COVID. And I really feel like they're damaging the ecosystem out there too. But apparently from reading things on Nextdoor, it was said that just a little tiny section they're allowed to go, but then if there's not a fish and game person around checking, a lot of times they stray into the tidal pool area near Princeton. So if he can answer that, that would be great. If they could possibly think of making that other section off limits as well.
Nicholas, can you respond to that?
I think that was a question for Chris.
If he could respond. I think she was asking you.
Yeah, Chris brought it up. I mean, Chris was on Nextdoor talking about it. If she's still on the call, it'd be great if she could talk about it.
So Sid, it's not inside the state, it's not inside the county park system.
Yeah, our southern boundary is the tip of Pillar Point, more or less. So what's occurring that you're referring to is outside of our boundaries, but is what we're trying to prevent within our boundaries from occurring.
I got it. Thank you. Well, I do live really close to Seal Cove Marine Fitzgerald Reserve, and I do enjoy the upper walking trail and the Jean Lauer Trail, but it would be nice to be able to go on the beach. And I do know from listening to the Planning Commission meeting this morning that the county has a hiring freeze. So except they have to replace Joe Leclerc. But I know you probably are, tight on your personnel, but if you could find a way, it would be great to reopen that one. Thanks. Even if it was like maybe just one day a week or something. Think about it. I appreciate it. I support all my other neighbors that would like to go there. Thank you, Nicholas.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. Like I said, it's our plan is to get it open when we're properly staffed, and once we open it, we have no intention of closing it again. I mean, it was never our intention to keep it closed as long as it has been closed. We did not anticipate the pandemic. We did not anticipate losing the amount of staff we did, and so we have to be flexible and adapt to our situation when we're managing these properties, and this is what we feel is the most appropriate. But once it gets open, it's going to be open, and everyone will be able to access it the way you were able to prior to COVID.
Can you comment on the hiring freezes? Does that impact the hiring of these rangers?
I've been working with the county manager's office on the hiring freeze, and he's been supportive of us being able to fill those positions.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Chad. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name. Sorry.
It's Shavink. Thank you so much. Hey, just to chime in on Steve and several of us that live around Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. I know you guys are in the process of hiring. I know it's a priority for you, but we have a lot of families with young children. I mean, they pay big taxes, and I know no one anticipated COVID, but I mean, I know you say you need two rangers at all times. I've been there for years, and it's very rare that I see. I don't know your staffing, but I don't see rangers out of the last 12 years on when I'm down on the beach. It's disheartening for us not to be able to have access to it. But Nicholas, I know it's your priority. I know you want to get people hired, but please make it a priority, just for the families. And I know it's a tough thing. Another thing I'd like to ask is, can we volunteer to help monitor or be volunteer to help monitor these beaches to expedite this? Yeah, that's what I'd like to ask and hope for.
So with regards to the volunteer, you can most certainly, I would recommend you reach out to the Friends of Fitzgerald who volunteer to help do that type of monitoring, and most certainly will be of huge assistance when we do open it up, to make sure that we're doing it in the most responsible way. So that would be a great way to volunteer and assist.
Sure.
And then with regards to it being a priority, I hear you loud and clear. I mean, when I have my conversations with the county manager, I make it really clear that when the time comes, when before I was given the ability to hire, what I made clear was we need to hire in this district before we hire anywhere else. So we're not just short staffed in one district, right? We have shortages in other districts as well, but this is the first district that we're going for to hire positions for. So
I really appreciate that. Here's the thing, Nicholas, and I know it's a balance because you want to protect the ecosystem. You want to do what's right for the Marine Reserve itself. I'm just saying, for living in the community for many years, I mean, people pay big taxes, they got children, and to have it ported there, it's like these kids are walking the bluff, and yeah, that's great, but they're like, that's my beach. I have no access to it. But I know it's a priority. I'm just trying to tell you, man, from a neighborhood standpoint, we really appreciate you prioritizing and get those positions filled so we can access it, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chad. Next, let's go to Marcia Yates.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Marcia Yates from Moss Beach. Like I was walking my dog at Pillar Point today, and boy, people are walking away with buckets and buckets of sea animals and mussels and clams. And it's just, I can't even believe it. So I think Fitzgerald needs as many rangers as possible to protect those tide pools, because I cannot believe they are making Pillar Point, Mavericks Beach, a desert of animals. It's just ridiculous. And I wish that it was part of your jurisdiction so you could get guys down there too, because it's really scary. So that's just my comment.
Thank you for that. Next, let's go. It looks like Bill has his hand raised again. Could you go quickly? Let's do 1 minute this time.
Sure. Thank you. So I'll make it quick. So the signs on the fences that close access to the beach say that the beach is closed due to COVID. If that's not true, this sign should be replaced saying the beach is closed due to staffing. That would be more accurate and more truthful. Number two, if there's an alternative to the Friends of the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, I would be interested, because it seems like the Friends just want the beach to remain closed. So if there could be a neighborhood watch or something similar, then I would be interested in that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak to staff about removing the signage. It likely was left up when the beach was closed due to COVID. I'll have them remove that. with regards to the Friends group, I think it's important to note that the Friends want the same thing the department wants, and that's the proper protection of the resources there. That's every conversation I've had with the Friends. That's all they've asked for, is they want to make sure that these resources are properly protected. So I share their concern, but I don't know of any other volunteer opportunity at FMR that would be outside of the Friends.
Okay, thank you. And then let's go to Chris Liang. Also,
Just
1
wanted to
minute,
comment
please.
really quickly, respond to what Sid was saying, and speak to what Marcia was saying as well, and just to clarify a bit. So I think Nicholas is aware of this. Pillar Point is not within Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, and it is getting hammered by overtake. But immediately adjacent to Pillar Point is the Pillar Point State Marine Conservation Area, which is within Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. It's very difficult to reach that area going south from Seal Cove, but it is part of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And it is my understanding that Nicholas does have an appreciation of that piece of Fitzgerald, and that's why he just expressed concern over this area in general. Nicholas can confirm, but it is also my understanding that he has committed to try with limited resources to get staff out there on extreme low tides to protect that sensitive area that is accessible from Pillar Point. So Dave's comment was a little bit misleading. There is an area immediate to Pillar Point that is experiencing a lot of illegal take. People are going in and pulling out urchins and mussels and sea stars, etc., out of an area where there's no take that is in the reserve. And it is my understanding that Nicholas is sympathetic to this, is really aware of it, and doing his best to protect that area as well.
Okay, thank you for that comment.
And Chris is right. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we are very over time on this agenda item. It's clear that there are a lot of people who have a strong interest in reopening the reserve. I will add my voice to that. I would like us to think about how to get creative. It sounds like it's going to take several months to hire enough rangers to really protect it. I think we all want to see the reserve protected, but it's been closed for a year. I just would also throw out there whether we could potentially enlist members of the Friends of the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve to help with making sure that no one is taking anything when they go down to the beach. I know that people are still going down to the beach, even though we have the fences up. And I think it's not necessarily that people want the tide pools open, they just want the beach open. And so I'd also throw out there whether there's a way to open the beach without opening the tide pools, or without letting people go onto the into the tide pool area. We need to move on. It looks like Dan has his hand raised. So Dan, can you just make it very quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if Nicholas, can you please give us just a very quick update on your plans for fuel load removal at Quarry Park? And hopefully, something can happen. Start with the low hanging fruit, get something started. The fire season is right around the corner. So can you please let us know what your plans are?
Yeah, at this time, we've been working primarily to maintain that approximately 100 acres treated during the CAL FIRE project. On February 23rd, I'll be rolling out to the board the department's new wildfire fuel management program, which consists of 32 projects, almost just over 1,800 acres, and several of those projects are from Quarry. Not all of them, but several of them. And so we're looking at taking a systemic approach to how we address our fuel reduction. Right now, we do not have plans to expand some of the work that was done there. Right now, we're really focused on making sure that we're maintaining it. If you don't maintain what you treat, if you don't retreat it, it just grows back and you're back to square one. So for us, before we move on to treating more, we really need to make sure we have the original treatment area under control. So that's where our focus is right now. And as time goes on, we'll be able to move on and treat more of that. We understand that Quarry Park is a huge concern for the coastside community, and it's a concern of ours as well. And that's why we've put together this fuel management program and a long-term plan to treat and retreat areas to make sure we're mitigating the greatest risks to the community.
Okay, I'll be reaching out to you, Nicholas. Hopefully we can get offline. I need more information, and I'm not going to stall this agenda item right now, but we're gonna need more than that, Nicholas. So I'll be just plan on hearing from me.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate you coming to our meeting and fielding all these questions. And I do think we will probably ask you to come back regarding the fuel reduction project at a later date.
I'd be happy to. I think I just froze. But I'd be happy to come back anytime you'd like me to.
Thanks, Nicholas. Claire, it looks like you may have to take over as chair to move to the next item.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
You're back now. Okay, great.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is Meadow Creek Bridge. I am supposed to be presenting. I hope that my internet participates. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
We're seeing it. Thanks.
Okay. It's loading. See? Okay. Okay, so starting with a quick timeline of the, I just want to recap. So in November 2018, the SMC Board of Supervisors approved a plan for a replacement bridge. This is something we actually didn't know about, didn't find out about until very recently. But now looking back, they did approve that on their agenda in November 2018. I think we first found out about it in July 2020 when the and bicyclists. And then in August, we took it up at an MCC meeting, and the county came and communicated the plans for the new bridge. In October, we sent a letter requesting that the bridge be built farther inland. Then in December, we had the Department of Public Works come back again and present more details on the bridge, at which point they published the neg deck in December. We weighed in on that in January. And then at the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday, the Board of Supervisors certified the neg deck.
Is it appropriate for Len to do some of this, or who else on that committee?
Yeah, I'm in a position to do it. I'll look to bring the presentation up. Maybe Michelle will get back on.
Okay, you have co-host privileges now.
Okay. Unfortunately, okay. Okay, Michelle, sounds like you are back.
Okay. Sorry about this. Okay, so where we go from here is that decision from the California Coastal Commission on the coastal development permit. And then with that, if the CCC does go ahead and the permit, the built and completed possibly as soon as the end of the. Since that in October, when we wrote our previous letter, we've heard tremendous outpouring from the community. With over 1,100 signatures, of residents and users of the trail favoring the replacement in the existing location. And we've heard from many people at MCC meetings and received dozens of emails favoring that replacement. Heard that people want beach access via the stairs. There is an informal access down to the beach from the south side of the southeast side of the bridge. So people do want that sort of access maintained. There isn't currently ADA access or really a way to do that, but that is available at nearby beaches. And then we've also learned that the current Highway 1 detour, while it seems like has been made as safe as possible, it's still right next to the highway and it's not ideal. We've also so this is just highlighting kind of we've heard members of the community do not, which are closed bridges and the detour. What they do want is a coastal route and a bridge that is able to connect the trail in its existing location. We've also learned, we know that there's a huge impact of losing the bridge for an extended period. There is a lot of value in keeping the coastal trail, the vistas, the beach access, as I mentioned before. It's an efficient way to travel between Highway and Miramar. Actually, north of Miramar. Highway 4 is unsafely mixed car pedestrians and other modes of transportation, and it makes it harder for people to turn on off Highway 1. We've also learned the time and the cost of relocating the bridge because the county has already moved forward with designing the bridge to be replaced in its current location. Know that is what can happen the quickest, and that any other approach that would involve moving the bridge back would take several years, land use changes, either through purchase or easements, and potentially legal issues. So the replacement in existing location will definitely be faster than any sort of movement, and there's just a lot of cost uncertainties with and
I don't know if you're hearing me, Michelle, but we have lost you.
it's actually a detailed presentation, at least picture shows 1872 and below in 2018. I was shocked by that, find it pretty dramatic how much erosion has occurred during that time in the last almost 50 years.
Michelle, you become very spotty. You still show on, but you're showing.
She just dropped off.
I'm sorry. Feel free to take over, Lynn. I don't know what is wrong with my internet tonight. I'll try to share my screen again, but I'm on the phone. I guess I'll just continue. I can continue speaking on the phone.
Yeah, I can. So we're at the erosion slide.
Yeah.
Right now, and then the next slide is need for long-term planning now.
Yeah, maybe Lynn, if you could share your screen, I can speak to it.
Okay.
So you can see from the images that I shared and that can be found on the MCC website that there is, a lot of erosion that has occurred. Obviously, at Surfers Beach and then also at the Meadow Creek Bridge. But what we've talked about is that we need to begin long-term planning now. So if we are replacing the bridge in its existing location, we know that it may not last past about 20 years till about 2040. That's some estimates that we've heard from the county. We don't want another emergency closure 20 years from now. We know that we need to start planning now for what's going to happen when we have to eventually retreat from that existing location. And so there is a new agency that has emerged. It's a government agency called the Flood and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District, also known as oneshoreline.org. And that agency is looking at protecting the coast from climate change impacts, both the bayside and the coast side. But currently they're only working on the area within the harbor, basically in the Pillar Point Harbor all the way to Surfer Beach, but not south of that. And so as part of the letter that we wrote, and we'll talk in a moment, we have 2 letters to consider tonight, but both of them actually request that the study be extended south, and there are slight discrepancies in terms of how far south, but covering the Meadow Creek Bridge area and south to approximately Roosevelt Beach. So go on to the next slide. We'll talk about our options for tonight because we do have 2 letters, and the reason that is because a group of 3 of us worked on the original letter, which is listed first on the website. That was Len, Greg, and myself. And then after that letter was posted, Dave Olson worked on an alternate letter. So our options tonight are either approve letter A, approve letter B. Len, can you go back to the slide? Approve both letters, or approve neither letter, or some combination of letters A and B. So we have a lot of complex options. And so when we go around the council, what I want to do is first go around the council for clarifying questions. And actually, we'll first have Len briefly speak about his letter. We can have Dave briefly speak about his letter, and then we'll go around the council. And I would like all the council members to indicate in the first round which of these options they would prefer to do tonight. So Len, would you mind putting up the first letter, the letter that you and Greg and I worked on?
Okay.
And just giving we don't need to read the whole letter, but just giving a quick summary.
Okay. I have this letter on my screen now. I want to confirm that people can see it. Whoops.
Yes.
Okay. So in the letter, it starts with where we were at on October 28th. It goes through some of the most specific reasons that we have strong impact from the issue of building a new bridge, and in particular, the question of where to build a bridge. We've covered some of those in the slide presentation that Michelle has given. And so this comes forward and say, as a result of where we're at now and the impacts we've cited there, that we support the replacement of the bridge in place in the current location. We have technical and environmental concerns. And with the board's current action, we look to the California Coastal Commission to complete both their environmental and technical review of the project. And should they consider it suitable, we're supportive of going ahead in the current location. Going beyond that, we think equally important is people working on the projects in the harbor and the erosion from many perspectives feel that it's quite possible that this bridge will not survive past 2040, if indeed it makes it that long. And so long-term planning for this section of the coast is needed to begin to identify what an inland relocation would be, so we avoid the kind of emergency situation we face now. Basically, the Harbor District is working actively on one project for sand replenishment to improve the situation. The San Mateo County Planning is looking at it from a long-range standpoint as well. And as Michelle mentioned, oneshoreline.org which has been quite active with projects on the shoreline. And the Bay is also looking at projects here centered on the harbor, but extending up to Mavericks Beach and down to Surfers Beach. And we asked them to extend that as far as Medio Creek or more desirably Roosevelt Beach in the state parks. So that's the basic outline of this letter. Back to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Lynn. Dave, would you like to give a quick update on your letter?
Sure.
And Lynn, if you could just present it, if you have it up.
I do. Just a second.
Yeah, it's been on the website since Monday evening, just a few hours after the first letter. My letter, instead of talking about the bridge placement, focuses completely on the problems with armoring, including along Marauder Road, and as well as the damage to the coastal trail further south by implication, and talks about the problems with the RSP the county has placed just north of Medio Creek. And it states that it's clear that placing the RSP, that's riprap for anybody who doesn't know the jargon, has not halted the current erosion problems and in fact may actually have accelerated them, which is quite typical of armoring. It mentions the alternate trail location being mentioned in the CTC, and that the CTC itself recommends that realignment be considered. And that ties in with the previous letters discussion of the Coastal Commission suggesting that the trail south of Marauder Road will itself have to be rerouted due to erosion. And then it closes with a sort of a generic, it's important to the coastal community that the trail be maintained and we not have trails closed for substantial time periods. Part of the reason I put that in was very briefly, every time the county messes around with the RSP on Marauder Road, they close parts of the beach and they close the coastal trail. And if they have to keep doing that every year or two, the coastal trail will be closed for 1 to 3 weeks at a time while they do that. So that was the genesis of my alternate letter.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Let's go around to members of the council for comments. Let's start just because it looks like Dan has his hand raised. So Dan, let's start with you. Everyone has 3 minutes. Please ask clarifying questions and indicate which option you prefer.
I'd like to just go ahead and make a motion to approve letter A.
Okay,
I'll second it.
thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the table to approve letter A. Let's go around to the council and get their comments. Let's start with you, Dan. Did you want to make any comments?
No.
Okay. Next is Jill.
Can you come back to me? I'm looking at a paragraph right now.
Sure.
Thanks.
Next, let's go to Claire.
I'm a little confused about what we're doing. I thought we were sort of picking among these choices, but I think they're both of value, both letters. I am leaning toward not supporting a letter that says specifically what should be done. I noticed in the first letter that we wrote, we said we thought, the letter said we thought it should be moved inland. I noticed in the letter that the group wrote tonight, it says we think the bridge should be replaced at its current site. The third is a little less prescriptive, which I would prefer because we don't know what the options are actually going to be. I think we all want that bridge replaced where it is. I don't think there's anybody that would disagree with that. The point that I'm concerned about is that we don't know what's feasible at this point, And I would rather support a process whereby we get the best outcome that we can, rather than saying we absolutely have to have one outcome or the other. So I'm leaning toward the second letter.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Let's next go to Greg.
If this is clarifying questions, then my only question would be, we just got this afternoon a copy of the creek erosion study. Are we allowed to discuss that?
We can discuss it if we want. I've read it. I don't know that many people have read it yet.
It hasn't been distributed to the full council or the public yet. It's posted on our website now, but it was not known.
So my question stands.
I would suggest not to speak about it now because there's too many people that really don't have it before them.
If you think it raises a relevant issue to one of these two letters or requires changes to these letters, then you can certainly bring that up. That would be totally reasonable.
I'd agree.
Well, it's relevant, but it doesn't require changes to letter A, that's for sure.
Could you summarize very briefly what it said?
Yeah, just summarize it, Greg. I think gone this far.
It says that the engineering company hired thinks that the creek bed is likely going to be stable.
And this is
that the bridge in the proposed location will not exacerbate problems in the creek.
Actually, Greg, that's not what it says. It says it won't have effect on the creek bed. It does not address the creek banks at all. It does not address the wave action on the creek. It only addresses what will happen to the water in the creek.
And who wrote this study? The contractors?
An engineering firm named Reco.
And who are they? Are they the ones that are being retained to do this? Or who paid for this? What's the story?
The county paid for the study at the request of the Coastal Commission.
Okay. Okay.
Jim Porter described it briefly at the Board of Supervisors meeting this morning.
Okay. Can we just, I think that's probably not worth discussing any further right now. Greg, did you express your opinion for approving either letter A or B or some combination?
I didn't think I was supposed to do that. I thought I was supposed to comment on clarifying questions, but I am in favor of letter A. I'm in favor of letter A.
Okay, thank you. Len, let's go to you next.
Okay, I mean, the point I want to make about the distinction between letter A and B is that A explicitly says that while we do not consider ourselves expert at the technical level and we have environmental concerns, that we will see it now passing to the Coastal Commission and their decision on those issues is satisfactory for us. And it's on that basis that we support building the bridge in place. In other words, if the Coastal Commission says that's unsatisfactory technically or environmentally not to do it, there's also a consideration in place that even if those things might be considered in some ways okay, there are a number of reasons not to continue in any type of armoring. But basically, whereas letter B leaves our previous letter in place and speaks to future plans. So really, if the intent is to support in some form keeping the bridge, building it in place, which has concerns and we try to cite those, then letter A is the only one of these two that will clearly present that position to those we distribute our letter to, which is the county, as well as a copy to the Coastal Commission. A thing that they considered as well is to take some of the points raised in letter B and to revise the second page of the letter. And I'll just make a brief stab at what that looks like. So the first letter remains the same. And now the second page goes a little bit more strongly at this. So it says, regardless of the decision by the Coastal Commission, we recognize that it may not survive past 2040, so we should immediately begin the long-term planning right away. We've asked for the consideration for Miramar beaches to be within the time frame of planning. This is clearly spelled out in the final draft of Connect the Coast Side. And finally, note that both what the flood and sea level rise resiliency district, as well as the other agency we're working with, is giving attention to the matter of the future in a near-term sense. So try to buttress those statements a little bit more strongly. But as I said before, the key paragraph in our letter is, as a result of the considerations we discussed, we support the pedestrian bridge replacement in the current location. We've commented on it technically and environmentally, but the county has finished their stay, and now it's the Coastal Commission that will review those points. And so with their approval, we're for building the bridge in place and trying to help them recognize what we consider the negative impacts of an extended loss of the bridge, as well as a strong community support for this option.
Okay, thank you, Len. Let's go back to Jill.
Okay, so I like the first page of the first letter, and I like the last two paragraphs of the second letter. So let me say, I really like the last paragraph where it stresses it's important to coastal community, residents and visitors, blah, blah, blah. I think that's very powerful, and I like to have it at the very end. So that's from the second letter. And then the paragraph above it is sort of a condensed version of the one that's in the first letter. So I like both of those. One thing that does make me ask is, who are the many sources that MCC agrees with in the first letter? It says, let's see.
This is that the bridge won't last more than 20 years?
Yeah, second page. The MCC agrees with many sources. Who are they?
Well, chief among those sources was Joe Leclerc, who's the principal planner for the Connect the Coast Side, but has also spent time to look at it closely for his study. So those is a attributed quote to him, not publicly stated by him.
Okay, so it's really just Joe Leclerc.
Well, you can talk, I did not list other people. Most of the people who object to it, I would imagine if you were to talk to Dave himself, and he would tell you that if they build it in place, he would not expect it to last 20 years. So virtually anybody who doesn't want it in its current place would certainly agree with that statement.
Okay. I do know people in the community who think it will survive past 2040. So I just wonder if we should put in the sources who we are agreeing with to make that more powerful. If it's just Joe Leclerc, that's no.
Well, he studied and talked to several people that do it, but that's.
We can put it in as a footnote or something, but it just, it bothers me that there's these many sources, but they're not called out. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. Dave, let's go to you.
Well, we seem to have drifted way past clarifying questions. So,
well, I asked everyone to do clarifying questions and then indicate their which action.
But there's been many other comments. Do you want me to hold off all of that? I feel like since everybody else has discussed things, I should at least say a few things about the other letter.
Okay, go ahead.
Obviously, I would vote for letter B over letter A, so that's a no-brainer. My problem, okay, so there's also a problem here that we have a technical violation of Rosenberg's rules of orders. Len was in the minority on the last letter, and Rosenberg says it has to be somebody in the majority who votes for reconsideration. And this new letter is essentially a reconsideration. I'm not going to be real picky about that because I know that you and Greg worked on it, and so one of you could have been the one proposing it, and you were in the majority last time. I just want to point this out that people should be trying to follow Rosenberg's rules of orders.
And I wasn't aware of that rule, so thank you for pointing that out. Would have been more helpful a little bit earlier, but that's okay. It was something I know.
But in the following discussion,
by the time I saw the agenda, it was too late.
Got it.
Well, you're also ignoring that after that, the council discussed and at least 5 of 6 were favorable to more discussion.
That's not a factor in Rosenberg's rules of orders because it wasn't a parliamentary
Oh.
issue. But anyway, the point, it just raising it, and I'm saying it's not really relevant because I know somebody else could have been the lead on this. My big problem with letter A is that as it seems to indicate that we've got a lot of new data. And in fact, we really have no new data other than public comments. And they are very subjective. And the letter makes it seem like we've got new substantial data. I have not heard any new data that's reflected in those bullet points. So I have a problem with that, the way the letter is written. And that's one of my issues. I am also bothered by the fact that there's no real discussion of armoring, which was something we felt pretty strongly about before, and to just ignore it in this new letter is tacit approval of the armoring, which upsets me a great deal. The petition, I personally do not give a lot of weight to. We all know how petitions go and how they're worded. There's a lot of data, and somebody on the trail says, "Oh, do you want this bridge rebuilt?" And a few other sentences, and they'll say, "Oh, sure, of course I do." But that's not considering all the other problems. We all know that if we encourage the county to build this where they are building it now, and I certainly feel it's somewhat moot given that the county has passed the ISMND, and that the DPW will work with the Coastal Commission staff to try and get this built at the current location no matter what, that we are ignoring the opportunity cost on this. Asking them to start the design to deal with the ultimate erosion is something that takes funds. It's something that takes time. The people, time, and the funds that would be necessary to do that are going to go into other more immediate projects. So asking for those long-term studies is great. But as noted, the county started this replacement project in 2018. And why didn't they replace it before the bridge actually failed? Because they had funding and staff problems. So, it wasn't a surprise the bridge was failing. They knew it was failing. To just say, "Oh, okay, it's great, go ahead. We trust, that this time you're going to do it right," bothers me a great deal. So that is why I could never vote for letter A. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
I'd like to respond to that in one point.
Okay.
The primary thing we're acknowledging in our letter is, and I believe it's pretty overwhelming, that the thought of a 3 or 5 year maintenance of the detour of the coastal trail in place is not at all acceptable to most people who consider that. And a large number of people do like the trail in place and feel its loss for that period of time is really major. So that's the preponderance of research we're talking about.
But that we knew that in October when we voted
Dave,
for
can
the
I
other
finish,
letter.
please? Dave, all we're saying is it'll go to the Coastal Commission and they'll give that review there. We found in looking at other places points to raise to them, but they've closed their comment. So we can only pass those on to the Coastal Commission now.
And my point is, in that case, there's no need to send your letter A at all.
I would disagree. That's why
Okay,
we're moving forward.
Yeah, let's pause on this for right now. I do want to get public comment at some point. It looks like Claire has her hand raised. So Claire, please go ahead.
I can
and
wait.
then we'll go to public comment.
I think we should do public comment.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay, if anyone from the public would like to speak on this topic, please raise your hand now. I don't see any hands raised at the moment, but we'll give it a couple more minutes. Okay, we do have a hand raised from Patrick Tierney. Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the council taking the difficult decision to say, hey, let's rethink what we've said. Letter A addresses the fact that regardless of what Dave Olson says, the vast majority of the community members, the trail users, as indicated by a petition with 1,000 signatures, Dave, you can't ignore, says that replacing the bridge as soon as possible in the same location is a preferred alternative. You're not going with the will of the people if you ignore that, I believe. The technical data is there. That's what the county has been using. They've hired technical consultants to provide that data. Dave Olson, you've talked to several people and you said the reason for your technical data is coming from sitting at the edge of the bridge and looking at the sand erosion. There is support out there from an engineering perspective for replacing the bridge and the armoring that would be necessary. We're only talking about 200 feet instead of 10 years of delay and detour around the dangerous area. So I really appreciate the fact that letter A is taking a more direct, let's not shove this question aside for more and more study. We know that if we don't, if the county doesn't get their coastal commission approval for this summer, then it would be a major delay in time. So thank you to the council members who are brave enough to step up and make a decision rather than delaying and delaying and delaying. I agree that One Shore is the best alternative or the best agency to help us develop a plan for the future. That's what we should be doing in a reasonable, logical manner instead of having an emergency situation like this detour is. So please support letter A so that the majority of the coastside residents and trail users will be pleased and satisfied with the outcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Patrick. Next, let's go to Neil Day.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. We live at the end of Murata Road at 201 Murata, which is right behind the bridge. We're very much in support of replacing the bridge at the current location for all the reasons that have been outlined. You know, it's a great feature of the neighborhood, provides access. You know, we feel it's an important part of the infrastructure here. Over the last 6 months, I've talked with probably 100 or so people, both residents and visitors. I know a lot of them signed the petitions that went around. You know, the support is overwhelming. So, you know, we very much support the replacement in the current location with the current plan and getting it done as quickly as possible. I also support the idea of doing long-term work to figure out how to keep the trail in place as erosion continues. I think the plan that's outlined of working with the local commission to figure that out is a good one. So I hope we'll be proactive and figure out how to address this before it becomes an emergency again. So thank you very much. And I very much support letter A and the replacement in place.
Great, thank you, Neil. Next, we have Alec Hogg.
Hi, Michelle, thank you. Thanks for letting me speak. And I would like to reiterate Pat's comment of despite the rules of parliamentary meetings, I really appreciate the open forum and the efforts that the MCC council members have made in reviewing this issue from the beginning of, well, the surprise that you got when you first heard about it which I think was perturbed a lot of the people on the board, on the committee. And then the initial conversations, which, you had this initial letter and you've listened to the public. And so thank you for taking the time and spending the energy that it takes to go through all that. At the same time, a lot of people spent a lot of time trying to figure out, what do the community want? And I was just looking at the MCC website, trying to look for that study on erosion. But from your bylaws, it says the purpose of the MCC is to provide the community with a more effective means to express its views to the County of San Mateo and other government agencies on matters of concern to the community. And so when I hear, Dave, you say that you don't put a lot of weight in that petition, it was a really loud outcry, as Pat said, of 1,000 people saying, here's what the community wants. There was a lot of discussion of erosion, and I applaud the analysis or the concern that we need to look at what a long-term plan is, but 20 years to 40 years is a long time. That is a long-term plan. By that time, if policies go through, we won't have carbon emission vehicles anymore. Who knows what else will change? So I think that even 20 years is a long time. But going back to outside of my opinion, that long period of time that we have now, it is a good time to plan, but we should take into account things like Dan Haggerty has proposed. Are there ways to rebuild the beach? Is there technology out there? Let's look at what the C2C group will put together in terms of what to do for the whole region. And then let's look at this erosion study. But in the meantime, the community has specifically and loudly said, let's replace the bridge where it is. The county has hired experts, real engineers that know about hydrology and wave action and other things. And they're saying this is a worthwhile project. There's also projects going on elsewhere. Some people say it's not related, but the city of Arena is building a new wall and armoring an existing one to protect their parking lot that is sitting behind an existing seawall. And the Coastal Commission has a recommendation to approve it by the Coastal Commission planner. So I believe that we're in a position right now that we need to look at options, as you're saying, Dave, and others. But I strongly request that we do not look at, and the community does not want to open up the can of worms that says, hey, replace the bridge. We think the community thinks we should replace the bridge where it is now. But in the same time, we think it's really flawed and maybe the Coastal Commission should kibosh it. Because that's kind of what we're hinting at here. I think really what we should say is the community wants it in the current place, and we're willing to do what makes sense to get that access that the Coastal Act promises to people delivered by the bridge where it is, and then decide what to do next. Having people travel through a neighborhood which was not designed for thousands of people a weekend to ride bikes rapidly is not a plan. Moving it to Alameda, First Avenue, Second Avenue, or any of the other avenues that actually are easier to build on is not a plan. And just letting it fall into the ocean is not managed retreat. So I would ask the MCC to really approve letter 1, and I'd really like you to beef it up and say, Coastal Commission, we'd really like you to approve this, despite any reservations might have over armoring, because the engineers have said it's okay. Thank you.
Alex. Any other members of the public who want to speak on this topic? I don't see anyone else. So let's go back to the council for discussion. We have a motion on the table to approve letter A.
There is somebody with their hand up.
Oh, I didn't see that. Who is it?
Bill.
I see Bill. Okay, let's go to Bill then. And if anyone else wants to speak on this topic, please raise your hand before Bill is done speaking. Bill, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Bill Easterling, and I live at 2 Murata Road, right across from Neil. Actually, I'm in strong support of letter A. We want the bridge built in its current location. I've actually talked to one of the project managers and told him that they will be allowed to use their and park their heavy equipment, which is cranes and whatnot, on our parking lot driveway area, which will mean we won't be able to use it during the duration of the project, and we'll have to do street parking, but we are that committed to making that happen. Also, I wanted to, I mean, some of the safety issues of the current detour have already been talked about, but one that hasn't come up that I see every day is that people still use the bridge. Putting a piece of chain link and a close sign on each side doesn't stop people from climbing over, climbing around, and the county closed it originally for liability, so there's still probably liability that is at risk here. So I just wanted to make sure that that was understood. And basically, I mean, the statement I'm all for letter A, but the statement about it not lasting past 2040, that seems like an estimate. And I agree with Jill, who said she wanted to see who the sources were, who that was claimed that would say it would only last 19 years. And any estimate is going to be typically more of a range, that there's a worst case and a best case. So I can't imagine it being an absolute if you're estimating. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. I see Len's hand is raised, but no other members of the public. So let's go back to
So
members of the
this is for,
council.
We have
Yes.
Kristen now.
Sorry, what, Dave?
We have Kristen wanting to speak now.
Oh. Okay, Kristlyn, please go ahead.
Sorry, that was totally last second. I just wanted to acknowledge, for the sake of sanity, that I believe in one of the very early on presentations by the county, that the county even acknowledged that the bridge is not going to have a super long lifespan in light of sea level rise and all that, but that it was the lesser of the evils, in that many of the residents farther in didn't want people walking through their neighborhood and this and that and all that. So people keep mentioning, you know, who said what, but I think even the county acknowledged it very early on.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we're going to go back to members of the council for discussion. Len has his hand raised, so we can start with Len, and then we can go around in the same order that we did before.
I just want to point out that in terms of working with the county on this, that consistent with the timeline, they really have not run a good public process for this. There was no need, even if they knew they were going to close it some point this year, no need to close it in the way they did, with no notice and with no real plan for the detour in any state of implementation. In working on the environmental review as late as last week, I had asked them for the sand study, which they said that would be coming, but they didn't have it yet. Then today's planning, yesterday's meeting, they said yes, they'd had it, and they sent it to the Coastal Commission. So the reason we have it is the Coastal Commission sent it to us. So it's just not a good process on their part. But that being said, I think, you know, when you look at the hard reality that by this delay, they've created a need for at least a 3 or 5 year delay, and funding is even more uncertain now, that this still remains a good choice for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Let's go to Dan next.
Yeah, so we've got a motion on the floor, a second. Unless anybody else has an amendment ready to make, I'd like to call for the vote.
Dan, we haven't had a single round of discussion yet after the public, so we need to have that round of discussion.
No, we don't. If the council wants to vote, we can vote. I just need a second.
I don't
I'm
want to
just
vote.
I'm calling for the vote. If you want to keep talking, keep talking.
Okay, you've called for a vote. Is there a second?
Okay, I don't see a second, so let's continue going. Dan, did you want to speak? It was your turn to speak, either for or against either
Yeah,
letter.
I'll just add really quickly that, some of this speculation of the length of, how long a new bridge would last, you can't really say because the drawings, the design is not complete yet. So there's just so many factors. It's premature to really estimate. There's so many things that can be done to kind of shore it up. So I just wanted to say that. Obviously I'm for rebuilding the bridge at the same location, and I'd like to get through this meeting, and I'd like to get letter A approved tonight. If there needs to be an amendment, let's talk about that. But I think we've been really kind of, dragging this out.
Thank you. Next is Claire.
Several things. One, I am pretty irritated with the county process on this. If they had, apparently, if you look at the new entries on the MCC website, you'll see that there was information that this was going to need to be done and that they were starting to do the planning 2 years ago, and we did not have any access to that information. If we had had access to the fact that they were in the process of doing this at that time, we wouldn't be in the situation of trying to plan something that's already been planned in a different way. So that being said, I do want to congratulate the community on a very good effort to make people aware of their needs. I think they did a really good job. On the other hand, saying we want X doesn't mean X is possible to do. I don't, I know that Len said that his letter said that that we were in favor of building it at that location if the CCC said we could. That's not actually what the letter says. If we revised it a little bit so it would say that, I would be in favor of it. I want it to be built there too. I just don't know that that's feasible. I don't know if it's going to be approved. I think we can do what we can to make sure that it's as feasible as possible. But I just don't think we can say this is what should happen. I do think we should say very clearly that the community wants it to happen. So that's basically my thoughts at this point.
Okay, thank you, Claire. And Jill is next.
I have the same thoughts that I had originally, and I still am many sources. I'd like to take that out, but I don't want to drag this on, so I can vote for the first letter.
Okay, I just will put it out there that if anyone does want to make an amendment to the letter, that's an option to letter A. Next, let's go to Greg.
Well, I guess Alec Hogg said it for me because I wasn't on the council when they voted for the last letter. And it's clear that the number one thing on our mission is to reflect the sentiment of the community, and that's what the first letter does. The second letter, I don't believe, does that. In terms of whether you can ignore the petition, well, geez, I've gotten dozens of emails from residents, and I don't know if all the council members have. I've talked to people on the street. I can only think of 4 people I've even spoken to about this issue who have such great concerns about the potential for erosion that they don't want to take the chance that the bridge will be in place and last. And to emphasize what Len already mentioned, there is harm being done right now by not having what I consider a safe detour. We're losing the scenic vista. So what I would like to hear, and geez, I'm sorry I missed this, Claire, is if there's a need for more clarity in what we're saying. I thought it said what Len says it said, that we're approving this subject to experts in erosion and armoring agreeing that it makes sense. Okay, that's what we're saying. And if Claire, you have an edit to tweak the language, I'd entertain that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. We haven't given Dave a chance to speak this round. So Dave, do you have anything additional to say?
Yeah, quite a bit. of things. I'll ignore the various attacks in chat and speaking, but and first of all, I do want to apologize for Lynn for talking over him. Shouldn't have done that. I also want to point out there is absolutely no urgency for this letter, either of these letters. When this letter was originally being written, we had no idea that the mitigating neck deck was going to be on the Board of Supervisors agenda yesterday. As I understood it, part of it was to affect the vote on the neg deck. That's already done. So if we do think one or both of these letters are viable but need modification, we have plenty of time to make the modification because there's no longer a deck date hanging over us. I still have problems with letter A, obviously. I also want to point out that the role of the Midcoast Community Council is not necessarily to reflect the opinion of the community. We have a much larger role in doing the right thing. And we've had a big lesson in this country over the last few months that doing what the majority wants, or even a large minority, is not necessarily the right thing to do. That's not to say they should be ignored. And I hope I am not giving anybody the opinion I am ignoring the public. I am weighting things differently than they may be doing or wish I was doing. But I vote my conscience. I bring things forward that I think are right, not necessarily what is the majority. We are not required to vote in any way based on what the community thinks, if we have a good reason to do otherwise. I do believe this letter is confusing. I believe it has factual errors in it. I would like to make amendments, but frankly, I don't think they would change its impact one way or the other. So I'm just going to vote against the letter, and I will not. I was thinking of proposing amendments, but I'm not going to bother to do that. That's it. Oh, I'm sorry. I should actually make the motion to approve the alternate letter while I'm at it and see if there is a second for that.
I'll second it.
Okay, so now we have two motions on the table.
And I'd also like to make an amendment to the first one.
Okay.
In the sentence below the bulleted points, I would suggest changing it, move that first sentence out of the way and make it start with the MCC has commented on technical and environmental concerns. And then the CCC will make the final review and determine whether to approve the CDP. And then say, when that is approved, the MCC supports locating the bridge at its current location. But the reason I'm saying this is to make it clear that we realize that we really can't request something that that hasn't been made feasible.
Were you making a specific amendment there, Brent?
Yes, yes.
Can we get the letter shared up on the screen?
Trying to get there. Can you see the letter?
Oh, I saw it better before. Let's see.
So Claire, please specify where you want to make those changes.
Okay, the final paragraph of the first page. Delete the first sentence, keep the second sentence, change the third sentence to say what it says. No, change the third sentence to say, the MCC supports replacing the pedestrian bridge at its current location, subject to the decision of the California Coastal Commission, which will make the final, and the rest of the sentence goes on the way it is already.
So Claire, so we're looking at the last paragraph of the first page, right?
Correct.
So the first sentence you want eliminated completely,
Yes.
then
Can you do that with track changes on, Lynn, so we can see the change? So undo what you just did and then put track changes on.
So I put a draft last sentence into the chat for everyone. I don't know if that helps or not.
I think it would be tracking on, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to say.
So this is gone.
What Greg said is fine with me.
Could you say it again? So
Greg wrote, with CCC's approval of the CDP, the MCC will support the proposed bridge replacement at its current location.
this was for the second sentence.
You pasted
The
that.
last sentence.
The last sentence here, just a second, Ben.
Be the last sentence in that paragraph.
I think that's isn't this unnecessary because, you know, the coastal commission's gonna have their way anyway, so.
Well, I would like to acknowledge that so that we don't look like idiots.
Well, it's unnecessary to
So
acknowledge.
Dan,
Isn't it
Dan,
obvious?
she's making an amendment. We'll vote on the amendment.
Okay, right. I'm just, discussion, Dave, you know about that,
But
so.
we're still wording it. And what Greg said is fine, but I would add at its current location. So that's my amendment.
Replacement at its current location.
Yes.
Yeah, you can copy and paste it from the chat.
I just did,
what
Greg.
Claire wanted.
Greg, I just
Okay.
did. Okay, so that now reads, the MCC has commented on technical and environmental concerns, which we feel should be recognized and addressed. With CCC's approval of the CDP, the MCC will support the proposed bridge replacement at its current location.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, thank you. So,
Okay, let's take a vote.
okay,
Unless someone, Patrick, we've moved beyond public comment, so unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to have more comment. We're already very late on our agenda. So let's just move straight to a vote on this.
okay. So this is a vote of yes or no on the amendment Claire just made. Dave?
Is this amendment on letter 2 or 1?
1.
This is letter 1. Greg?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Claire?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Michelle?
Yes.
The amendment passes 7-0.
Okay. Now let's vote to approve the letter as amended. Oh, let me call it. Does anyone have any other amendments they would like to make?
Okay,
Okay, let's vote on the letter A
This
as
is-
amended.
now vote on the letter A as amendment. I will vote first and say yes. Claire?
Yes.
Jill?
Aye.
Dan?
Yes.
Greg?
Aye.
Dave?
No.
Michelle?
Yes.
Passes 6-1.
Okay. We also have a motion on the table for letter B. Let's take a vote on letter B.
I don't think we had a second. Do we have
Yeah,
a second?
We have
We
a
did.
second.
Okay,
All right.
just a second.
Are we going to have more discussion on this or not?
Well,
If anyone feels it's necessary, we can.
Just raise your hand if you do. Oops, I'll get my hand down.
Greg, did you want to say something? Okay. All right, no hands are raised other than Len's who's putting it down now. Let's have a vote. This is a
Okay,
vote.
this is a vote on letter 2 as read. First would be Dave,
Yes.
Greg,
No.
Dan,
No.
Jill,
No.
Claire,
Yes.
myself, no, Michelle,
No.
fails 2 to 5.
Okay. Thanks all for your patience on that tricky topic, especially from a parliamentary procedure standpoint. So let's move on to item 4C. Len, would you be able to share your screen?
Yes, I can.
I sent you a link.
Now, this is over in the Google Docs?
Yes, it's a Google Doc. I could
Okay.
try to share my screen, and then if I run into trouble.
Okay, yeah, I tell you what, yeah, you go ahead and I'll be there as a backup.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
So I would stop sharing. Hold on, well, go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Um,
Should be up.
hold on, I'm not.
Can other people see my screen?
Yes.
You have to say share, do you?
I am sharing. I think it's
Okay,
visible.
I got it. I see
Okay.
it.
Great. Okay. So this topic is the MCC newsletter. To set the stage on this, as most of you know, we spent a great part of last year working on a newsletter for the MCC and putting it out eventually in November. The process was pretty arduous. There was a lot of discussion on it at a couple of different meetings. There were 3 of us that worked on it for a great deal of time, and we worked together with the county, with Carrie Dahlman from the county. And we eventually put out the letter, but I don't want to do that same process again. It was very difficult. And I also heard from other members of the council and the community that, it should be an MCC owned newsletter, not a newsletter in collaboration with the county. We want to write it. We want to be able to have kind of more control over it. And so what I'm putting forward tonight is a proposed process to continue the newsletter. It would be a quarterly newsletter, and we can decide at any point whether we want to keep going with it or not. But my proposal is to move forward with the winter 2021 edition. And so I'll be covering 4 main topics. I also have had discussions with Tim Fox from County Council on how to make sure we do this in a process that is compliant with the Brown Act. And so this proposed process would meet that. And I, welcome your guys' feedback after I go through the process and the proposed content and the timeline. Okay, so at tonight's meeting, we would decide on the content for this quarter's newsletter, who would be responsible for writing each section, and the overall timeline. The rules on the content is that it needs to be factual. It needs to represent the things that we are talking about at our meetings, kind of a newsletter to the community, letting them know what's going on at the MCC. I know we've had a lot of success on Zoom with getting 30 or 40 people at each of our meetings. We have several hundred people already on our email list for the newsletter, so this really would extend our reach and get more people excited about what we're doing, and just increase awareness of both who the MCC is and what are the issues that we are addressing. So the content would need to be factual. We wouldn't be able to have any opinion articles. That gets very tricky in terms of legal issues. We wouldn't be able to have, I guess I shouldn't have said no public input. It's no public articles. So all the articles need to be written by members of the MCC. This is also guidance from County Council. And we just ultimately can't undermine the appearance of fairness. So as long as we're representing the things that are happening at our meetings, kind of similar to the way that we represent things on the website, It would be basically extending that content into an email newsletter that's sent out. We would need to decide on one editor who will collect all the content and provide light editing. It's spelling, grammar, formatting, and ensuring that the articles that are written comply with the rules that I've stated above. And one technical person who will actually set up the email in MailChimp and send it out. MailChimp is a system that we've used in the past, and it's a free system, so it would make sense to continue to use that in the future. So members of the council would need to volunteer to write each section. And we could split that up. I propose that we do that tonight. I also propose that we simplify the sign up process for the newsletter. Actually, currently, we don't have a great way for people to sign up. People initially signed up through a survey that we did last spring. And we currently don't actually have a place on the website for people to sign up. The only way people could sign up is to, I don't even know. I don't even think there is a way right now, but I would propose that we add a link to the website for people to be able to fill out their information and indicate that they would like to sign up for the newsletter. This would be separate from our agendas that people can currently sign up for on the website by clicking this email agendas link. I propose that we have, so this is just a screenshot here from the website, keeping the same top part, but potentially getting rid of this email agendas in this section and creating a separate little section on the maybe the top right of the website that would have people sign up for the newsletter. They would click that link. They would then be able to enter their email address. If they wanted to sign up for the agendas, they would click that link, which opens up an email window, just as it does currently, and allowing them to subscribe. And then I propose, and this is where we can get into the details of what the content is and who would be willing to write each piece. But I propose, just based on the issues that have been coming up lately on the council, that we talk about Connect the Co-Side, COVID and vaccine availability, which I plan, as Lena said, to have someone at our next MCC meeting talk about that. So giving just an update to the community on what's happening with that. The Murata Road, Medio Creek Bridge progression. So really with that, it's just reporting on what happened tonight and what has happened in the Board of Supervisors meeting and what is what the progression is on the bridge, the Quarry Park pump track, and fire station lighting, which is another issue that we took up recently. So it would be on each of those, just what is the latest that we've discussed at meetings, and if there's factual information that has occurred outside of our meetings, we could include that as well. So we would need one volunteer for each of these topics. And my proposed timeline is that we decide on that content, the editor and the technical person, and who writes each thing, as well as the timeline tonight. If we agree on adding the sign-up form to the website, we do that as soon as tomorrow. And then everyone goes off and writes their pieces and brings that content back to the editor on February 27th. The editor completes the initial review by March 3rd, works with the technical person to set it up, and then the email would be sent on March 9th. So I think what I'm looking for now is feedback from the council on the process and volunteers to write specific content pieces, as well as be either the editor or the technical person. I will throw my name out there as potentially the technical person because I have used MailChimp a lot and sent a lot of emails through that. So that would be a good role for me to take. Okay.
I'll do the fire station lighting.
Thank you, Jill. That's awesome.
I'll do Connect the Coast.
Okay, I love it. Pulling up names here. Anyone else want to volunteer right now? Let's go around.
I can do the COVID.
COVID, great.
And I can do Quarry Park if no one else wants to do it.
Okay.
So I could write on the Murata Road Bridge, but I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble by voicing too much opinion.
Well, you
Well,
got to
it's
be
gonna be
careful not to
edited.
put opinion in there.
Our editor will strike you down.
Yes.
As long as Dave is editing me, I'll probably be safe.
Wait, who's editing? Do we have a volunteer?
Yeah, Dave would be a good editor.
I would be a good editor, but I simply have not gotten enough time to do that on top of everything else.
How about Claire? Claire, you interested? You'd be a good editor.
I don't know that I'd be a good editor. Dave has to correct my spelling all the time.
What about you, Jill?
I can't write 2 stories and be editor.
I'm not even sure how much I want to do this at all, but I would be willing to.
Discussion?
What? That's what I'm trying to do.
I'm sorry.
I got my hand raised if anybody wants to let the public weigh in.
Okay, so
I'd like to say something. So,
okay, hold on.
Claire,
Hold on,
Claire, are you done, Claire?
Dan.
Yeah,
please-
you let me know I was done, so I am.
No, please.
No, I'm
both of you
sorry.
stop
I'm sorry,
talking.
Claire.
Dan, please stop.
That's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm fine.
Well, I'm not, because this is so we okay. We
Well, I
have
haven't said
I was
anything
taking
yet.
volunteers, and we've moved on to I don't think there are any clarifying questions on this. So let's
Actually, wait, there are clarifying questions. That's why I raised my hand at the beginning of this talk.
Thank you, Dave. Let's do clarifying questions only right now, and then we'll move on to public comment, and then we'll finish this part of the assignment. So go ahead, Dave.
Are you still thinking that this is going to be translated to Spanish, or are you dropping that step?
I wanted to check with Carrie and see how many people actually went to the Spanish version of the newsletter last time. I do still think it's very important, and if the county is able to provide that service, that's a really good point. We should have it translated.
I would like to put my vote in very strongly for continuing to do a Spanish language version.
Yes.
I think we can use our own treasury money to do that.
Well, I think we should see if the county can do it.
Yeah, they did offer that translation assistance, and they do have the expertise, and it can go out a day or 2 later if necessary.
Yeah, they say it
or
takes
even a week later.
But yeah. Okay, that's a very good point, and I will follow up with the county on that. Any other clarifying questions from you, Dave?
No, that was a big one.
I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry, this is Lena, and we'd be happy to still do the translation.
Hey, Lena, didn't realize you were still there. Thank
Sorry to hop
you. Awesome. Okay, let's go to Jill next.
This is an emailed newsletter. Is it possible to also have a printed? I assume it's 1 page, maybe front and back, like printouts at post offices, because a lot of our coastsiders don't do email and don't want to do email.
We'll have
I think
to.
we had limited to 2 pages total.
Yeah, it was longer before. We could potentially print it out and post it there. I don't think we have any funds to spend on like distributing it more broadly, but depending on the length of the content, it'd probably be several pages based on what we did last time, but it could be possible for people to put it at the post office.
Okay.
I would want to check with county council on that though, because I do know that there are things that apply to printed newsletters that don't apply to email newsletters. So it may be a question for Tim Fox.
We could also put a note at the top of our agendas that the newsletter is available on the website. So that every time the agendas are posted, people are reminded.
Yeah, even if someone doesn't want to get it emailed, we can send people to a web page that has the newsletter from our website or from the agenda.
I'm just thinking of people who don't go online, and a lot of people like to read things printed. and a lot of people who, sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
Well, couldn't we, as a feature within the distribution, just have, if somebody requests a printed version, we could do that, and it would cost a certain amount of money. That's within our funding capabilities. If the county won't do it, but just, click this box and you'd like to be mailed a printed copy.
I don't think that that's worth it personally.
Well,
And I think there
I
are
mean, if it reaches people who wouldn't otherwise get it, and let's say specifically in the Spanish language group, but anyone, if it gets it to another person, I would argue it is.
okay. I know,
I
we
don't think
can
we
look
have to
into
decide
that.
it now.
I'm just keeping in mind something that Tim Fox said to me that makes me think that that's probably not gonna
The
be feasible.
the other issue is the post offices really do not want people standing next to the door reading long documents right now. And that's going to continue for many months. So no, we should not be posting this ad.
I agree with that, but why not leave that under consideration for now? I don't think we have to decide it right now.
This is all about the winter one. It's setting the process for the others, but
no, I'm arguing to consider a print option on demand, and let's at least explore it a little bit more. We don't have to decide it today.
Somebody has to be willing to sign up to print it, address it, stamp it, and mail it if we do that.
Well, I mean, if it got a huge response, I mean, I'm for exploring it a little bit and bringing proposition back to the council.
Yeah, I'd say let's, I would recommend us putting that on hold for maybe a future version. And if we hear, community members say that they would like a printed version, but that seems like a lot of work.
Well, you don't know till you try it. To me, it's a risk factor. I don't think it would necessarily be large, but.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, I think there are issues with the print newsletter that we may not be in compliance with based on what we're planning here.
Okay, go ahead. Dan's got a question.
Yeah, so, my question is, how can we be certain that, having 4 newsletters a year will not create essentially, extra busy work, complications that would detract us from doing more important work that is needed, deadlines after deadlines, and having to rush at the end. I get the feel that overall the council is pro newsletter. I am not so much, although I would be open to having less frequent. I'm really concerned that it's going to wear down the council and detract us from doing more important, because there's going to be items coming up and we're going to have to give our attention to it. There's coastside buzz, there's other avenues. I just don't think that we should get into this quarterly.
Well, I hear you, Dan, but I think people can decide for themselves what they're willing to take on. And I don't see your name next to any of these.
No, I won't be
Okay.
taking anything on.
Okay, Jill, did you get your question answered? Your hand is still raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will try to unraise it. Yes, I did. Thank you.
Problem. Okay, it looks like Sid has a question. Let's go to public comment now. Sid?
It's not really public comment, but I was trying to scroll back through the chat and I realized when I typed in all my contact information about envisioning a future county park and community park / community center that I must not have hit enter and now everybody's off the line. So I'm willing to, on the winter newsletter, donate the Xeroxing if somebody does want to take it around to either post offices or local watering holes. Like El Gran Amigo gets a lot of local Moss Beach traffic. There's probably a place in Montera that's like maybe Here Comes the Sun. If the post offices are not an option, I'm willing to do that. But I also would like to be able to put in the little blurb about getting together an ad hoc group to talk about the future of getting a community center, since we've been on hold for so long on that, since 2002. If you would let me do a little quick blurb in the next upcoming newsletter, I would definitely be willing to donate Xerox copies of this newsletter to.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been advised by county council that we can't have public members have write sections of the newsletter.
Oh, so it's just got to be you guys?
Yes.
All right, then I withdraw my offer. I'll type it into the next year's chat box.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from members of the public? Okay, let's go back to the council. We definitely still need an editor. It seems like either Claire, I would just say either Claire or Jill seem like they would be great for that. And Jill, if you wanted to do the editor role this time, and you know, you don't have to commit to doing it for the entire year, but if you wanted to do it this time, we could certainly find someone else to write the Quarry Park pump track.
Yeah, how about Chris Johnson? Now, can Chris Johnson do that? Because he's sort of like ex officio in his role there.
Tricky, I don't know.
The other thing is, we don't have to have a single editor, because that would mean that an editor could never write an article.
That is guidance from county council to have a single editor, but we could push back on that possibly.
But what I'm getting at, and this is absolutely not a violation of the Brown Act, and I'm sure Tim Fox would agree, not talking about having two editors of the overall document, talking about an editor, alternate editor for articles written by them.
Oh, yeah, that could work. Claire, you've been very silent.
And I would be willing to be the alternate editor
Okay.
on those two articles, if Jill is willing to take on the editor duties.
Yeah, I'll do it. What the heck?
Thank you, Jill.
Okay, so basically we have Jill as the main editor for the articles that she's not writing, and then Dave as the editor for the articles that Jill writes. And then that is it, unless Claire wants to. I know Dan doesn't want to do anything. If Claire would like, is she still here?
I'm still here. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. I've always been in favor of more outreach, more visibility. But I feel like this is changing so fast. I used to be a joint effort between the county and us. I realize that we don't want the county to run over us. On the other hand, I don't feel like I have a lot of time. I agree with Dan, actually, that our efforts might be better put someplace else if we have to do this all by ourselves. On the other hand, I wouldn't mind doing some editing if we were actually going to do it, but I just really am not sure it's wise.
Well, maybe you'd like to.
So could I jump in here? So I'm kind of where Claire is and maybe where Dan is, but the way I'm looking at this is as an experiment. Michelle wants to do it. I think we owe the community a chance to try it. And then we'll see. But I do agree there are several other things I'd like to spend my time on rather than writing after the fact explanations of stuff that's old. On the other hand, if it works, if it's enjoyed, then I guess I got to support it.
Yeah, thank you all. I mean, I think that we are committing to, if we go forward with this, we're committing to do one edition. We see how it goes. It can't be any worse than last time. And you know, my hope is that each person writes one article, you know, maybe a couple. You know, we take a little bit of time, the editors review those articles, and then I'll set the email up and put the format together, and we'll send it. And you know, I think it could be done with, you know, no more than a couple hours per person.
Yeah, and I also want to toss in the fact that this run is covering things that are quote unquote old doesn't mean that they all have to And it also doesn't mean that even for this one, if somebody thought, hey, we've got this big issue coming up, I want to write an article about this upcoming issue we're going to be handling, you couldn't do it now. This was just Michelle's initial list. Obviously, it can't be too long.
We can add, we can subtract. It's just a draft. So maybe we don't need all 5 of these topics, or maybe there's something else that could be added.
And for Jill and Grant, we did get requests from a number of people in the community for better outreach. And after a very, very long process, this was the method we came up with that seemed both effective, or at least somewhat effective, and feasible. The and feasible was a really big part of it. So it would be a shame, I think, to let that die. I do think we should keep this going, and this seems very doable for the schedule that Michelle is proposing. And we can tweak this further for the next one, but getting something out, I think, is well worthwhile. That list of issues is both current and important to the community. So I think it's a good list.
We have a blast from the past. Carrie Dahlman wants to talk.
Oh, hi. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Greg. I just didn't want to butt in there, but thanks for your comments about outreach, Dave. And I just wanted to reiterate from the county's perspective, we're more than happy to continue the collaboration on this effort and support in any way that we can. So just wanted to let you know and just reiterate that.
Thank you very much, Carrie. And all of your help on the previous version of the newsletter was so appreciated. I know you were in it right there with us for all those months, and we really appreciate that. So.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much. And yeah, I would still say, hey, there's work to be done to kind of streamline the process. But yeah, just thanks for your collaboration and happy to continue to support.
So, Michelle, I have an offline or off-topic question for Carrie since he's right here.
Okay.
So, Carrie, you went off to do other things, and I think the lead item was tracing. Are you still working on that?
Yeah, so still
How's it
contact tracing. It's been going well. Just a side note, there's, as you may know, been a huge surge of cases over the end of last year, but it looks like I'm preparing to return back to the District 3 office right around the end of March, I think. So we'll definitely keep the council apprised, of if any assignments change or if any of the responsibilities change in Supervisor Horsley's office.
Look, it's 10:08. It's 10:18. I'd like us to stay on topic, please. I really do like to hear your voice, though, Carrie. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Can we stay on topic and get through this?
And let's move on.
In the past, we've had a 9:30 target to.
Okay, we can move on. Okay, I think we have this settled. I don't think there's anything else to talk about here. As long as everyone agrees with this timeline, we may have to delay the final send date if we do the Spanish translation, which we will plan on doing. But other than that, I think we're good to go. So let's move on.
Okay, wait. But I move that we go ahead with what we've just worked out.
Okay, do we need
the process outlined and the assignments?
Is a motion required for that?
I second.
I think it is.
Okay, let's take a vote then, Lynn.
Okay, motion is to go forward with our winter newsletter. We're going to take roll on that. Jill?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Dan?
No, I think I'm just going to say no, and that's the,
Thank
the
you.
frequency.
Thank you. Claire?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Michelle?
Yes.
Passes 6-1.
Thank you, everyone, for your support on this. Okay, council activity. Does anyone have anything to report?
Yes, I stayed in touch with DPW on their neg deck, raised some comments with them. We had two responses back, one related to their structure of the composite of the shotcrete and riprap, which I had further questions about and sent back to them. I also inquired about the erosion study, which they said they didn't have yet, but we've covered that we got that. So I'll that letter exchange will get posted up in our information on the bridge, and that sort of ends it since they have finished their work.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, so I covered this briefly under for the agenda item, but I did attend yesterday's Board of Supervisors meeting, the entire meeting.
Whoa.
4.5 hours plus a half-hour break. In addition to what Lena reported on, if she did report on, I missed it. The supervisors decided that they were going to route both the state and the federal rent assistance money back to the state to handle all of the processing, with the county just doing the outreach, retaining a small amount of the money for that. So that's well over $40 million for rent assistance. There are constraints. Somebody has to be affected by COVID in some way, and a number of other things. But that is a very substantial amount of money for rent assistance. And so that was a really good thing to hear about. When I, in more detail, I sent Len and Michelle the details. When I did speak on our previous neg deck letter, I reiterated our points on recreation and creek bank erosion and one of the other items strictly within what we had discussed, none of my personal opinions. For the record, I also spoke as a private citizen at the beginning of the meeting on that agenda item. I also wanted to mention that I should have gotten this under announcements, but I think it's pretty important. The Half Moon Bay Review and Pacifica Tribune are now looking for a citizen advisory or editorial board. So people with an interest in local news might want to go look at the website and potentially apply for that. Also, there was a very extensive article on the Beatty Oak Bridge item in today's review, and also an issue about the fire station, mentioning us quite a bit, and that the fire department was in fact working on reducing the glare of the lighting, and the county making very clear that they felt the current lighting was a violation of the conditions of the building permit, and that what had looked good on paper did not turn out good in reality. So people have had an effect. So thank you, especially Jill, for working on that, and for the community members who came to us. That's all I've got.
I have something to follow up on, Dave. I received an email from Summer Burleson. She's the planner for San Mateo County, and she's working with the Coastside Fire. So she said that the county met with Coastside Fire staff last week to discuss and hear their ideas, and they subsequently sent over some proposed modifications for addressing the lighting concerns. We are reviewing this week and putting together a notice of minor modification that we intend to send out to the public that would allow comments to be submitted prior to a decision by the Community Development Director. And that was 2 days ago. So that's good. It looks like progress is going. I'll keep following.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Greg, do you have a report?
I have a report and/or potential agenda items. I could defer until
Let's
we
wait
discuss those.
until, yes, please hold off on future agendas till the next section.
Okay.
Do you have a report? Okay, so you didn't have anything besides that?
I'll describe my report when I propose the agenda item.
I see. Okay. All right. Future agendas, section 6.
So on the 24th, have confirmed that Joe Leclerc and his team will be coming back to discuss Connect the Coast Side. We have to let them know what it is that we want to hear about on that, and how much time we want to allocate toward that, and really what the process is just in general for giving feedback on Connect the Coast Side. We also have several other topics that we could potentially have, and I'd like to get people's take on, the priority of these items. But I have for the 24th, potentially we can have someone from the county come and speak on the COVID vaccine, or we could delay that to the next meeting if we wanted to do that and wait till we have more information. I've also asked Captain Lopez to potentially come and speak. We've had a request from community members about just an update from the sheriff's office and potentially, talking about crime in the area. So he is available on the 24th. And then we have a couple members of the council wanting to evaluate potential improvements to our letter writing process. And so talking to county council about that tomorrow. And then we have in March, the first Flush initiative, a report out from Kellex on that. I would, so I guess and then it sounds like Greg, why don't we go ahead with hearing what Greg's idea is for potential future agenda item?
Can I do a really quick interruption before that?
Sure.
We were going to do a poll about the closed captioning. So
Yes.
while Greg is doing that and everybody else, I'm going to throw up the poll on the closed captioning and see what people think. So
Great.
Go ahead, Greg.
So Michelle, the Brown Act issues and the need for more detailed Brown Act procedures for the MCC, that is the same issue that you're talking about with the letter writing improvements. And I
Yes.
think tonight's session was an example of the inefficiencies we face under our current process. Secondly, there's a lot going on with the sewer. And I don't yet know how to agendize it, but I'll point out there's a huge spike in pollutants. We're also being sued by Half Moon Bay. And when I say we, that even includes some Half Moon Bay users of the water and sewer system. And it's cost at least $1 million. I could substantiate that easily. And I don't know why the MCC hasn't taken a position on that lawsuit. And then finally, Sam is now working on a vision of a future decentralized sewer system, which, if feasible, would be a major change in the way we interact with Half Moon Bay. So at some point in the future, and maybe you just want to put it on future, but I think we have to talk about Sam, how it's working or not working, the lawsuit, and what the potential vision of a new sewer might do to our community. Finally, Pacifica has some development going on, and I've been asked to address one of the citizen groups up there on my thoughts about the strain on the infrastructure. There are two groups in Pacifica that I'm involved with. And I'll just mention this in passing, but the stress on infrastructure of the continued population expansions down here is something I think we're going to need to put on the agenda at some time in the near future. And it relates to the approval of every single new building that we consider. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Those sound like important issues. We do have a pretty full schedule for the next at least couple meetings, but I think if you could bring that forward potentially for later, the second March meeting or even April, let's discuss offline when you feel like you'd be ready to do that.
And then I had contacted you about, Michelle, about following up on one of the referrals we got regarding eucalyptus trees. I don't know
Yes.
whether that's going to be feasible to put together or not, but I will find out and let people know, or let you know anyway.
Yes, sorry, failed to mention that, but that was related to a group application. It looked like to cut a number of the eucalyptus trees down in El Granada, where several households joined together and wanting to understand the process and how we could make it easier for people to to cut those trees down if they wanted to.
It looked like a really comprehensive planning that they did, not just cutting down, but it was really complicated. And if it could serve as a model, I'd like to reach out to them and see what we can find out.
Great. Okay, so with Connect the Coast side, I wanted to entertain thoughts, and I know it's late and we got to get going, but with Connect the Coast side, does anyone have any specific asks for what the format or content of the meeting on the 24th should be?
Can I email you?
Yep.
Yeah, I just prefer to email something.
Okay, I would entertain any ideas shared. I think our challenge is going to be getting feedback in an adequate time period to be able to then provide them feedback, which we'll probably have to put together a letter or a list of feedback at a subsequent meeting. And I know they want information quickly, but we have some options there, as well as, you know, if there are any specific topics. I know it's a long document, but if anyone has gone through and want to specifically have them address any topics in there, then that would be great. Let me know. Just reach out to me via email.
Michelle, real quick, they said that they're writing this plan in order to get funding. So as soon as the plan's done, then they're going to use it to apply for funding. So I'd like to know what the priorities are. What funding are they going to try and acquire for which pieces of the plan first?
Yes, that's a great question.
That's what I'm after too.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. It looks like our poll is finished. Only 5 people voted, but 3 people found the live captioning useful and one
I
person
thought it was
didn't.
useful, and I think I stopped it early. I was trying to vote and may have closed it off prematurely before I
Okay,
actually voted.
got it.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Here we go. Michelle.
Aye.
Me, yes. Greg.
Aye.
Claire.
Yes.
Dan.
Good night, everyone. Yes.
And Dave.
Yes.
And Jill.
Aye.
A unanimous to close, 7-0. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
night.
Hey,
Bye.
Dave.